Hello, everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian. I'm here with Allison and our special guest, friend of the channel, Teal Deer. And we're going to be looking at, well, we're going to get into it in a moment. Teal Deer has a project he's working on that I think is going to be very interesting. And I guess we're kind of getting like a little bit of a glimpse into it. It's a lot
a taster?
Yeah, like a sample, like a demo that you don't have to pay for, like a
Teal Deer is bringing up the finest
access type of thing.
The finest cringe from his vaults.
Yes.
Give us a little taste.
And yeah, so stick around, hang out with us. I think it should be very interesting. But before we do, a couple things. So I've been meaning to do this for a while. Let me show what I got to you guys in the chat here on my OBS. So years ago, when I was still in Chicago, it was around Christmas time, and I was just sort of like, there was like this area downtown in the Loop where you can walk underground. You go from one train station to another, but you pass through a kind of mall. And I was passing through the mall, and I was kind of drunk, and I went into this one place, and it was around Christmas time, and there was this reindeer. It's teal colored, and I bought it because I thought of Teal Deer. So on the screen there, you'll see, because JoJo's not here because he's with Lindsay, but there is a teal deer in my room on camera. You guys see it?
I see it.
Yeah.
It is a deer, and it is teal.
It is. I did not create this. I found this in a store at random and bought it immediately. So just thought I would share.
Secret Teal Deer merchandise.
Yes.
I have a lot of secret merchandise around Christmas time because I also have two small plastic teal-colored glittery deer on my desk. You just find them randomly in shops. I'm just like, well, that's brand appropriate, so I guess I'll pick that up. And people will wonder why I have these things on my desk, and at some point I'll have to explain it to someone, and that'll be a weird conversation.
Yeah.
Mm.
So anyway, I don't know why such a thing exists, but I'm glad it does. So that was my bit.
Why that particular color? I noticed that teal is a popular color for deers, but it seems counterintuitive.
Is it? I don't. I mean, apparently it is more than it should be. You would think that they would just be brown or white, or that's it, really. I mean, we have deer around here, and they're all brown. So, but
maybe this is some kind of secret shout out.
Maybe there is a fan that works in a Chinese factory somewhere.
Painting the deer's teal.
Well, this one's covered in like a glitter. It's actually like glittery. So, it's supposed to sparkle, but it sparkles teal. But anyway, so
to the fan who is creating all of this unlicensed merchandise of me, I would like to point out my lack of kickbacks. So if you could get into contact with me about that, then I won't have to lawyer up. So if you get back to me about this, I will be able to afford a lawyer which would be nice.
Oh, it's a self. Okay, so I should do the things, right?
Yes.
Brian?
Now I'm gonna hand it to Allison so she can set the show up, and then we're gonna go to the deer himself. Go ahead, Allison.
Yes. All right. So the topic is going to be cringe from the feminist past, ghosts of feminist past, to prove that it was always rotten at the very core. But I do want to remind everyone that I am doing. I'm restarting the fundraiser to support my editing of my novel, The Captive Eye. I recently finished a survey of the top 50 science fiction and fantasy books as given or created by Goodreads. I never intended to create this story to actually be pro-male. In fact, I thought it was pretty neutral overall. But now that I've seen the average offering in the publishing industry now, it's terrifying. Like it's the reason why I was pretty like copacetic about watching the Barbie movie and I didn't get quite as irate as Brian is because I've been reading modern fantasy and science fiction, and the Barbie movie is actually much more good-natured than anything you can find in that field. I would honestly say that if you are the mother or son or guardian of a young man or like a teenage boy, do not let them randomly pick out a book. Of course, they probably will anyway, but the sheer amount of anti-male sentiment in literature today is shocking. and horrifying. And if you would like to push back on that a little, you can help me publish my project and get it properly edited at feedthebadger.com/I. That's EYE. Yeah, please help me fight against that tide of misandry. It's just really seethingly awful. And once again, if you would like to send us a message at any point during this show, if you'd like to comment on what we're saying, just say you enjoy the content, say hi to our guest, or whatever you would like, go to feedthebadger.com/justthetip. That helps us get the full benefit of whatever you send in terms of funds, and you get the benefit of a longer canvas to baffle us with, as well as avoiding YouTube's sieve of censorship. So once again, that's feedthebadger.com/justthetip. You can also send them if you are listening after the show at any time. And we will endeavor to read them out on the next show, the next relevant show. All right. I think I've done the thing. So are we just,
all right.
You want to...
Yeah, I guess we can jump right in. So I got this, Teal Deer was kind enough to email me about this topic. I guess tell us what it is that you were working on and why, what it is we're going to do, I guess.
Okay, what we're going to do for the next while is you're going to sit comfortably where you are and watch a sleep-deprived madman pull out several corkboards and reels of red string and go to town. I have no other way of explaining this.
Okay.
So, the tide of misandry that we're experiencing now is about 150 years, if not more, in the making, and I'm working on a project. So this all started when all the critical X's, critical theories, critical analyses, critical blah blah blah, critical race theories, etc. started hitting their high point a few years ago. All of that stuff has a religious and spiritual underpinning, and I wanted to point that out because I consider that to be very interesting, because some of the religious underpinning of that comes from a pre-existing enjoyment of mine, which is like European folklore and pre-Christian religions and religions which are other than Christianity, and some of the more esoteric parts of Christianity which evolved out of that. And these topics, the critical X theories, have an origin in that. However, feminism also has an origin in that. And going through the critical theory side of it and the feminist side of it, I basically just came to a point where I was like, I need to break this up somehow, because it's just too damn much. So I've decided to break the project down into two parts, one of which is going to go through the critical X theories, studies, religious underpinnings, and the other side of which is going to go through the women's rights, feminism, and intersectionality, religious and spiritual underpinnings. And before I sort of get into the books that I'm going to go through on this, and the one in particular that I want to focus on today, I've had somewhat I don't want to call it like a revelation, because I don't think it's that profound, but an idea in my mind about why we're seeing such a rift between the second and third, fourth waves. And I think that actually comes from this religious underpinning too. Because I think what you're seeing in this, and this may bear some explaining, is I think what you're seeing is the Hegelian second wave, the spiritual Hegelian second wave, smacking into the Marxist materialist third. Because when it comes to the second and third wave cancer argument that they're having, you're hitting the second wave, there is some immaterial, wibbly-wobbly, undefinable womanness that makes women women. Whereas the third wavers, you have no, everything is materialist, it's all social constructs, you can pick it. It is just something you are assigned, and we can control reality and go from there. And so I think that might be part of this struggle that's breaking out between these two.
Can I just add or ask? It sounds like those two things should be contradictory, but I don't think they are. I think that one leads into the other.
It does.
Yeah.
The Marxist side grew out of the Hegelian side because the Marxist view of it is still spiritual, but he just defined it in materialistic terms.
Can I
And
can I just get in here for a sec? Because I'm gonna play the "What the hell are you talking about" card. Okay, so the Hegelian second wave versus the Marxist materialist third wave. What's the first wave? Was it Platonic solids?
The first wave is it's still kind of Hegelian in it's more accurately a Gnostic spiritualist.
Yeah,
Okay,
I want to get into Gnosticism a bit here, but because I think it's a very important point. But Teal Deer, can you turn your microphone up a little bit? I don't know if that's something you can do on your end. I have you basically cranked up on my end here.
I can try.
You gotta compete with us loud North Americans.
Yeah, don't worry, guys. I don't plan on yelling today.
I can reduce my voice.
Is
a
that
bit,
better?
I think.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think that's
better.
Good. Yeah, that's
okay.
much
Now,
better.
please, some definitions, because.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
I know I'm
I
struggling. There are other
can't
people.
have my audio software on the desktop because I have 3 separate write-ups up, and I need to see all of them, so I can't keep an eye on any of the technical stuff behind it. Okay. So, in order to understand some of this stuff, there's a few books which I'm going to reference, and I want to go through. I think we need to go through the Hegelian write-up first, because that might explain some of this. So, Hegel was a philosopher, and a lot of his theories are based on a Gnostic tradition. And a Gnostic tradition is that the world is a carceral construct created by a fallen angel, which, if you follow things like I think it's in Kabbalah, it's the demiurge, which basically created this earth, the material world and everything in it, as a carceral form of keeping the human spirit locked up and isolated away from God. And your way of escaping this carceral hellhole that we all apparently live in is to achieve gnosis, it is to achieve the knowledge, it is to free your spirit from the material world. And you see that tradition stem up through quite a few different traditions. You do see it in Kabbalah, you see it in the Gnostic Christian traditions, you even see it in Eastern philosophies, things like Buddhism and escaping into nirvana and whatnot. You get out of that cycle of reincarnation, you leave the material world.
Yeah, it's also in our culture, like The Matrix is literally a Gnostic story where Neo has to find out about the real world and only Morpheus can show him the way. Or Star Wars is the Gnostic story in that Luke, has to learn about the Force, and it's like this hidden knowledge that you are trying to gain access to. It's the only way to sort of achieve a higher level of understanding. And Gnosticism, a lot of people practice it in their everyday life. It's very normal, at least at this stage. So it's just taking that beyond that. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tilda. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Although I might suggest that if you looked at stories like Star Wars, I don't think you might necessarily be looking at a Gnostic tradition with the finding of information and doing that, because that's not about leaving the world. That, I think, would be more based on things like the Olympian cycle from the Hyperborean tradition, which entails basically solar traditions and solar stories where your main character is the sun, and then their journey throughout the story tracks the path of the sun through the darkness, which is the night, going through all the chaos, and that's where you get the typical dragon and serpent imagery, and then coming to the west, and then coming out back, returning to the east and tracking through the sky, and that's a whole other thing which I don't really want to get into.
We should be back for some mythology analysis, because I just got a dump of a whole bunch of positive male mythology stories in my DMs. But just to bring it back on topic, what does this look like? The second wave, the feminist second wave, is Hegelian. What does that look like? What does that mean?
Like I said, it's just an idea which I've sort of vaguely had in my head. I don't have a lot of absolutes about it. But what I am going to do is go through the Hegel write-up here, and then I might be able to tie it together. I didn't actually plan that bit. It's something that's just somewhere in my brain, and I wanted to get it out because why not? So
Yeah, deep lore.
So the major part of Hegel and his way of working about things is you have an interplay between being, which is a thesis, nothing, which is antithesis, and this goes through what he calls a dialectic process, which is synthesis. So this is where you take two things, which are the opposites of each other, you whack them together, and then you basically get the result out of it. And the result, finding that result, is something which is a very specific term, which you find in a lot of these feminist and intersectional writings. It is the process of becoming, and you will see that word becoming quite a lot. It's even in a lot of these books that I'm going to go through. And the process of this dialectic is called sublation. So the Hegelian view works on what he calls a philosophy of history, and the philosophy of history is immanentist in nature. And immanentism is something which you find in Gnosticism, and it basically means that there is an immanent endpoint to history, so that everything about the world is moving in one distinct direction. And you'll probably recognize that from Marxist theology as well. It's fair enough to call it a theology because it is, in that they believe that you go through all of these revolutionary stages and eventually you'll end up in this end of history, because they believe that the entirety of history is a one-way political slide going forever left. And that's quite important. And Hegel was one of the people who sort of formalized this as an idea. So he believes that all things that exist, except for his one theory, which is his theory of Aufheben, which we'll talk about a little bit later, he thinks that everything everywhere is subject to this philosophy of history, this immanentist endpoint that we will reach eventually. And so Hegel's argument is that history is a constant process of dialectic clash, with each thesis encountering an opposite idea or its event antithesis. And the clash of both of these things superate, which is the term for going through that synthesis, and it forms a conjunction that conserves the contradictions between the two things, the thesis and the antithesis, while then sublimating it into its final synthesized form. And this is a contradiction of terms, and this is somewhat deliberate because his term Aufheben, which covers all of this, is a contradictory term. It means simultaneously to lift something up, but also to abolish it, to preserve something, but also to transcend something. And transcendence is a theme that comes up. It literally comes up in this book, which we're going to talk about later, this women's reality book. They literally talk about transcendence and how men and women use things to transcend differently. So this religious theme is very pervasive throughout. So the immanentist view of history results in a belief in an end of history, where all contradictions have been worked out, and this is the acquisition of knowledge through becoming, which is gnosis. It is the acquisition of knowledge that will allow you to become. So in the Hegelian worldview, which inspired Marx very heavily, anything that accelerates contradictions and thus the destruction of the current system is a good thing, because it will bring humans to the end of history at a faster rate, and that is the point where we need to get to. And for that, you'll want to read more up on Marx and his specific view of sublation, which he thinks of as a material concept, whereas Hegel thinks of it as a spiritual concept. And that, I think, is where we run into the difference between the second and third wave of feminism. Like I said, that's a weirdly experimental point that was just in my mind reading through this, and I thought, oh, this might actually explain some of the social constructionist side versus the indefinable wibbly-wobbly womanness that women are definitely women no matter what side. When you argue in spiritual versus material terms, that conflict seems to make some degree of sense, and I want to hammer that out more in my own time. I don't particularly want to touch on it too much today because I don't have much of the details finalized. So Hegel used all of this in a spiritual manner, and for Hegel, sublation reflects the agency of Geist, which is spirit. hence it's a spiritual tradition. And Geist can manifest itself in numerous ways throughout Hegel's writing. You get things like Weltgeist, which is world spirit, Volksgeist, national spirit, and Zeitgeist, spirit of the age. And this concept of Geist is why Marxists are so fixated on capitalized identity, such as capital B, black, and use of the term folk to refer to groups. Black folk, for instance, capital B, black folks, when they say it, capital T, trans folks, is an example of a Hegelian term, and it is specifically referring to the black spirit or the trans spirit, and necessarily refers to some element of this Hegelian dialectic contradiction. And the interesting thing about this is if you follow things like the Volksgeist from Hegel, you actually then end up in the far-right politics of things like the 1930s Germans, which is very interesting that feminism and that thing share a common origin point. It's a very far removed origin point. That it's not like I'm going to sit and say, yes, feminists are Nazis because of this connection. They're not. But it's kind of interesting where it's like, this is like your fourth cousin a few times removed. Do you really think you have a right to be calling other people Nazis, considering that it is part of your spiritual canon? I'd be careful with that if I were.
Mm-hmm. So with this whole thing about Gnosticism, I wonder if there's, and I know this is an aside, and I apologize, I don't mean to interrupt, but you see a lot of let's say, expertise, and I put that in quotes, coming from the left in the media and all that, and they say, well, for example, I saw an argument between Christopher Rufo and a host on MSNPC about critical race theory. And
MSNPC, I see what you did.
Yes, MSNPC, yes. And she was basically trying to discredit Rufo by saying that he is not a critical race theorist. He doesn't understand the any of the content. He doesn't have the knowledge, right? And then when Rufo would cite people, he would say, well, here's, Ibram X. Kendi's work or the other woman, Robin DiAngelo's work, and then she would just counter and say they're not critical race theorists. They're a different kind of critical theorist, right? They're different things. And he would even say, I think he even said, not Hegel, Paolo Fieri, who's what was I guess where they were pulling from, and she would say, well, he wasn't that, he was a critical something else, right? So there's this. It's like you have to have this secret knowledge to be able to have the discussion, and on top of that, there are people who are sort of guarding access so that no one else can speak on these things. Do you think there's a relationship there?
That's just gaslighting. And I don't even know if it's intentional gaslighting. So, for instance, when you bring up critical race theory and you talk about, well, here is literally a paper written by Kendi, here is a paper written by Crenshaw, or who are the other ones? Hang on, let me just actually grab the critical race theory textbook, which I have here, because of course I do. So things like you bring up like Crenshaw, Gatanda, Pella, Thomas, you can even throw people like Brown, Kennedy, and whatnot in there as well. Yeah, you can literally cite these people to them and they will say, that's not real critical race theory, that's not what it is, you don't understand it. The problem is, you do understand it, they don't. Now, the reason that they tell you that you don't understand it is because they need to delegitimize your position. There is actually a term for this, and I cannot remember what it is because I haven't slept enough to remember.
Is it because there was another thing I've been looking into, Mao Zedong, he created, as part of the Cultural Revolution, a series of groups that were placed into what was translated as black categories. And so, like, if someone was a member of a black category, then you're supposed to already have a bunch of notions about that person. It's like, thought terminating cliche, you could say, right? So, for example, here in America, and in the West in general, if there are parents who are concerned about what their children are learning in schools, the women are the ones that go. So when people say, oh, look at all the mama bears at the PTA meeting or whatever, one of the reasons for that, and one of the reasons why they get listened to, is because men as a group have been put into a black category, along with Christians and conservatives and like whatever the group needs to be, right? That, and on the flip side of that, you have like the name. This is why everybody gets called a fascist or a Nazi, because it's a purpose. The purpose of it is to drop people into a category, a black category. So I wonder if that's also not another part of it that I've been seeing, because that was what Mao did during the Cultural Revolution.
Yeah, it's basically just any way of discrediting what it is that you've got to say. Now, the reason that they do this, and this is why I want to say, like, it is gaslighting, but it also isn't. It's because when we go through all of this stuff and we uncover the religious origin of this stuff, these people who you argue with about this, they are neophytes of the faith. They don't actually understand it. They are the equivalent of the Sunday Christians who have never actually read the Bible. They just get told by the priest what is in the book, and they just go, oh, well, there you go, that's what it is. And that's what these people are. They go to their university lectures, they get told what is in these books, and that's it, good enough for them. They don't actually read any of these books. They certainly haven't read any of these older manuscripts, and they're not going to, because they're not actually interested in properly understanding. They just want to believe that they have the full knowledge of this topic, and they're just going to use that to shut you down, because they just basically want to be right about everything, and they want you to be wrong about everything, and that's just where it ends, unfortunately. So, okay. Let's go through some of the books which I'm going through on this project, because this might explain some of it, perhaps. So, the book which we're going to be talking about in detail today is this book, which is Anne Wilson Schaef, Women's Reality, An Emerging Female System in a White Male Society. We'll talk about that one in some depth today. That's the most recent one which I'm going through. This was published in 1981, and it does actually expressly talk about how women's ways of knowing and female understanding and the female system, as she terms it, is a theological concept. She literally talks about things like paradoxes and dualism, and actually even says the last chapter of the book, which talks about the female system, which is the system that must emerge to destroy the male system. This is where we talked about the acceleration of history earlier, and the final chapter of her book is literally called An Introduction to Female System Theology.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so this is basically a woman taking Hegel and painting it pink.
Kind of. There's a few. There are quite a few post-it notes on this where I have just written literally Hegel, because there's quite a few references to things like Hegel.
I'm just boggling.
She doesn't mention him by name. She mentions the concepts.
Boggling that this female system is yoinked from a man to a certain degree. Like you said, you have the post-its that say this is literally Hegel, and then she just sort of, I don't know, slaps it in blue velvet and says, no, this is the female system. Literally,
the process that she goes through is Hegelian. There's a bunch of stuff in the female system. We will talk about this. This is the main reason why I am here, to talk about this book specifically. The female process is actually basically a wibbly-wobbly, undefinable womanness thing. Like, it literally can be everything and nothing, and I will explain that as we get through.
I feel like I've encountered this.
You probably have, because this one is heavily influenced by the New Age movement, and also heavily influenced the New Age movement, and it was quite a popular book. It had, at the time that this version was printed, this is the second edition version, which was printed in 1992, I think it was. At that point in time, it had over 300,000 copies sold. That was, 40 years ago? So it's sold a lot more by now. So this was quite an influential one. It's another good reason to cite these books as well, is like, the defense, and this goes back to what Brian said when they say, you don't understand this, you don't know this, that's not real, that's not my... It's, okay, well, which ones are the real ones then? How many of these books do I have to read? How many of these writers do I have to cite? How many of their ideas do I have to present from all of these textbooks?
Until you agree with them.
Like this one, Anne Wilson Schaef, Women's Reality, this one literally on the back page says Women's Studies. Like, this is a women's studies book. if you go to any library, any university department, any women's studies department, it will be there, and it will be in the women's studies department. So, again, another reason to cite these sort of things. Okay, well, which ones are the real ones then? But then that just reveals more that they don't actually know any of this stuff.
Nope.
And they just resort back to the thought-terminating cliche of, you don't know what it is, I know what it is because I am the enlightened person who my brain is so big and so ascendant, and you are just you're just the filthy materialist. You might not even be a psychic, but no, I am the true helic in this. I know everything. I have the spirit and the geist and blah blah blah. But they don't know the terms, so they won't say anything like that.
No, they just call you a misogynist.
Yes. So that's the one we're going to go through today. Other books which I'm going through on this topic are American Feminism and the Birth of New Age Spirituality, Searching for the Higher Self, 1875 to 1915. That one's by Catherine Tumber. And throughout this book, she demonstrates quite convincingly how American feminism caused the birth of the New Age spiritual movement and how they are very heavily connected together, and goes through that in quite some detail. Other books, I've actually spoken, I think, about this one before on Honey Badger Radio, Radical Spirit. This is Spiritualism and Women's Rights in 19th Century America. This is by Anne Browd.
Sadly, again, I do remember that.
Yes, this one goes through, again, just confirming and demonstrating the connection between those two things. In fact, actually, there's an excellent part that she wrote in the introduction about this. Let's see if I can find it, where she actually explicitly says, yeah, no, this stuff is religious and you can't deny it. Why do you keep denying? Here we go.
All right.
So actually, this is not the book that we're talking about, but I am just going to read a paragraph from it because it highlights how obviously true this is, and yet all of the modern adherents to this religion don't know it. So this is from the Introduction of Radical Spirits by Anne Browd. Taking spiritualism seriously as a religion means that a cadre of female mediums who spread the movement should be seen as religious figures rather than as impressionable dupes. When I embarked on the research that eventually became Radical Spirits, more than one person asked whether I really wanted to tar women's rights with the taint of spiritualism. Wouldn't that be bad for the movement? At the time, I viewed these questions as curiously inconsistent with the goals of women's history and religious study. All historians, I believe, were committed to the quest for truth, whether or not they liked where it led. Historians of women, in particular, needed to restore what had been excluded from the historical record, not to impose new sets of blinders. Students of religion aspired not to judge specific faiths, but rather to understand and interpret. So that's a feminist author here writing in a book like, this stuff is being intentionally hidden. Why? Stop doing it. Be honest about it. Be honest about the spiritualistic tradition that you're drawing from.
Oh yeah. I wonder, so why do you think it was hidden?
That's why I'm going through all these books.
Yeah.
I would very much like to know. I think it's because they started embracing heavy materialism. And they just wanted to get away from religion, possibly because religion has hierarchical implications that they don't like.
And expectations.
I think things are pretty
expectations of self-development.
Yeah, I think things are pretty heavily materialist now. I think that's almost completely, but go ahead.
But the women's reality book does sort of go into the theological side a little bit, and like I said, we'll get into that one, which will explain some of that, perhaps, maybe. But yeah, so that is a book, the Radical Spirit one, which is just basically saying, yeah, no, this stuff is true. Like, just please stop denying it. Like, you're supposed to not be denying it. Just accept that this is the origin point of your religion. Other books which are useful for this, Divine Feminine, Theosophy and Feminism in England. This book by Joy Dixon, which actually goes through and demonstrates the theosophical underpinning of the women's rights movement, obviously from England, as the title implies. And that's very important because that brings in the woman who founded the Theosophical Society, which is Helena Blavatsky. And she was a very influential medium and psychic. oh look, we're covering all of these same terms again. But she basically spent her entire life traveling around Europe and traveling around Asia, and she specifically wanted to fuse together Eastern and Western mysticisms and occultisms. We'll talk a little bit about that going into some of the write-ups. Yes, this write-up, which I want to go through shortly, because hopefully that will explain it. But suffice to say, she borrowed a lot of stuff from Gnosticism, from Christian cults, Kabbalah from Judaism cults, and some of the stuff from Buddhist cults as well, and that basically just mashed it all together into this female-led matriarchal religion, which is why all of the early women's rights organizations, or the early feminists, and pretty much every suffragist, basically, or not every suffragist, every suffragette, pretty much all of them were theosophists, because they viewed it as, this is a female-led religion, it is a female-organized thing where women hold the power. It is not a patriarchal religion of men telling you things coming down from a patriarchal male god. It is a female religion coming from women, being generated within from women, and that was quite an important part of their spirituality, which is another part of why when you get into the New Age stuff, you just sort of have these unspoken rules that women are like more spiritual than men and more spiritually achieved than men, and men are like these just spiritually defunct things. And like, even if you go into one of the other offshoots of New Ageism, things like Wicca, it's basically just all women led, because it's, ask Hannah about that, she'll explain, and I can't be bothered to, frankly, but I know that she was into some of that and has mentioned it before.
So if they're pulling from established religions, not necessarily all Abrahamic religions, Christianity, Judaism, and even Buddhism, and who knows what else, maybe paganism or something to some degree. But it sounds like they're inverting what they think those religions represent. Like, they view, say, Christianity as a patriarchal religion. So in order to create their own religion, as it were, they have to take the existing patriarchal religion as they see it and then reverse everything and put women at the top, because they believe that the opposite is the case. Is that what?
Can I just make some? Yeah, before you answer that, Teal, there, can I just make an observation about Christianity as a patriarchal religion? I don't know how many people who've ever actually gone to Rome and wandered around the gone to Europe, but Rome in particular. I noticed this. Every single intersection had one specific image. You want to guess what that image was?
The giant vagina statue.
Well,
Virgin Mary. But as representative of female genitalia, if you look at the carvings. But yes, that is the main one. Virgin
Mary with the baby Jesus.
Yes.
Every single street corner. And if you go to any other place in Europe, they may not have an image of the Virgin Mary and the baby Jesus at every single street corner, but they have the Virgin Mary without the baby Jesus at the foundation of every cathedral. The foundation stone of every cathedral. Don't give me this shit that Christianity already doesn't integrate the feminine.
In the name of Marta Maria.
Of course, it's not patriarchal. I'm just saying this is like what I think this is an attack on.
Yeah,
is
sorry
like
for interrupting. I just wanted to point that out because it's the
I
allegation.
it's an inversion.
It's not just an inversion, it's a removal of the masculine. They don't just want equality. Like, look at the Barbie movie. They didn't just want the handmaidens that were assisting the patriarchal Barbies. They didn't just want to get the Kens and the Barbies to vote. They just wanted to get the Kens completely removed from having any influence whatsoever. Like, that's it. Like, it isn't an inversion. It's a complete removal of the masculine from Christianity. Under the apparent assumption that if there is any place for men, that means by definition there is no place for women, or there is a place that women don't exist.
That is exactly the belief that they have, and the women's reality book that we're going to do, so we're going to look through expressly.
Sorry for hijacking your question there, Brian.
It's okay. What was your question, Brian? Oh, the inversion thing.
Yeah, whether it's because
Some of
it
it-
seems
it-
like a lot of the stuff that goes on in our culture now is about taking what is perceived as an oppressive system where there is a group that has all of the social, cultural, or material capital and inverting that so that they're just all they can do is reverse things. Basically, it's just reversing everything.
Some of it does. If we go through actually the women's reality book, she actually expressly in the theology section writes that our culture is set up according to this basic hierarchical structure: God, men, women, children, animals, earth. And certain parts of the New Age movement do just straight up invert that, because Mother Gaia, most important thing, then animals, and then we must do things for like, well, they don't actually reverse the children and women. Women still come first, but it goes, in their one, it goes earth, animals, women, children, men.
I'd like to make a
There is
comment
no
on
God.
the Mother Gaia thing. You know, there's this classic statement in, I think, Islam, that every man is a woman to God. Okay, ladies, every woman is a man to Gaia. Get your mind around that one. I just throwing that out because I'm being a troll. But anyway, continue. Ignore me.
Okay. The other book, and I kind of wish I read this one first because it explains a fair amount of this stuff. This one is actually Science, Politics, and Gnosticism by Eric Voegelin. And it's a redux of pretty much everything that he's ever written, where he just goes through and explains how prevalent Gnosticism is throughout pretty much everything in society. So he goes through and even he references Hegel, he references Marx, he references Heidegger as well. Heidegger was an interesting one because he was actually very Hegelian in his thinking, and if memory serves, he actually was literally a card-carrying Nazi, I think, which was quite interesting given everything that we've spoken about. So that's a very interesting one, but it veers a little bit away from the specific sort of feminist and intersectional approach of it. But this one I would recommend to anyone: Science, Politics, and Gnosticism by Eric Voegelin. Buy it, read it. It will explain quite a lot to you, just how prevalent it is and how this system of thinking got through everything. I do have some very slight disagreements with Voegelin in some areas, in that he talks about how he thinks that Christianity is going to be a way out of Gnosticism in some ways of looking at it, which I would contest in some capacities, because Gnosticism is an offshoot of Christian cults. It grew out of it, and so I don't know how effective you could be at using Christianity as a means of getting away from it, but I want to read more of his stuff on it because it's just an interesting way of looking at it, I suppose. And other backups to reading this, if you're really interested in the much more esoteric side of it, this book, Key to Theosophy by Helena Blavatsky, which is basically a question and answer style manual of how the hell you explain theosophy to people who don't know what the hell it is. And the other book would be this one, which is again Blavatsky, The Secret Doctrine. This is literally explaining theosophy and how theosophical views is the synthesis of, like, she actually literally called it synthesis of science, religion, and philosophy. It's just marrying all of this stuff together and basically saying that, hey, science and religion, sure, they can be the same thing. Why the hell not? So those are all the books which I'm going through to achieve this project. Let's get all of these off my desk, onto a different part of my desk. And we will finally now talk about Women's Reality, the book that we're actually here to discuss, because that's what we're here to do. So, we've gone through the list of books. Okay, yep.
No, I just think that this was necessary groundwork so that we can understand the deep lore of what we're about to embark into.
Yeah, this stuff is, like I said, it's at least 150 years old, minimum. You could probably trace it back further than that if you wanted to, but this is already enough books for me to go through. I'm not going to be finishing this project this year, like, no way in hell. Mostly because it takes quite a while to read through these things, and I don't have as much spare time as I would like to do so. Also, this book that we are discussing today, Women's Reality, it's only 170 pages long. It took me about 2 or 3 weeks to get through it because of just how frustrating it is to read. There is, if I flick it around next to the microphone, every single page has at least one post-it note on it. So that's just post-it notes sticking out of it. Every single page has at least one post-it note. And that's just part of why it took so damn long to get through it, because I was just like, literally, what are you talking about? I mean, I just actually have some post-it notes on this that just say, lol. One is an exclamation mark and a question mark. Other ones which are just opposite of reality. And a few of them regarding some of her anecdotes are just post-it notes that say, this didn't happen, because they very obviously didn't happen. Some of the anecdotes in this are literally everyone stood up and clapped tier stuff. It's very clearly the author's fan fiction about what she wishes her life was.
It's a 170-page leftist meme.
Yeah, it really is. So, right, I'm going to finish the untitled write-up so I can close that. Okay, so we've listed the books. Vogelin explained Gnosticism. We've done that. Feminism is the spiritual movement. It is spiritualist in nature. We've covered that bit, reading the very short part from Radical Spirits. So, feminism aims to change society. The personal is political, as they like to say, and this coincides with the late 1800s and early 1900s rise of spiritualist mediums and theosophists, which we've covered. There is a reason why there is that popular image, of the female psychic that you go to see, with her headscarf on in the darkened room with the table and the tarot and the crystal. That's why we have that stereotype. It was the theosophists. It was the female psychics, the female mystics, who were all part of this theosophist movement. That is where that stereotype comes from. That is why we have it. So theosophy was founded by Helena Blavatsky. It was a combination of Eastern and Western mysticism. She traveled the world and borrowed heavily from Eastern mysticism and Western occultic traditions, Kabbalah from Judaism, Gnosticism from Christianity. One of her students who followed her around the world even wrote a book about esoteric Buddhism, so that clearly got in there as well. All of these things state, as we covered earlier, that the world is carceral, meaning as in incarceration, as in it is a prison. Your means of escaping from this prison is gnosis or nirvana, or however the hell you want to phrase it. Your spirit will escape from your body and go back to the source, go back to being one with whatever the source is, whether you want to call it God or something else, doesn't really matter. That is the entire purpose of it. New Agers, which is what all of this stuff grew out of, they think that all humans are just these vibrational beings, and that if we all just vibrate at the right frequency, then we will transcend into some non-physical form where we all join together into this weird divine slurry, because that is apparently the end purpose of these things. And Women's Reality actually expressly points this out throughout chapters 6 and 7, which are the final 2 chapters, which means I can close that right up and go to the very end of this one. So chapter 6, which is Paradox, Dualism, Levels of Truth, and that title is actually very important because it's capital T truth. And when you see words with capital letters, as we discussed earlier, things like capital B black, it's because they have a very distinct esoteric reference to them. So capital T truth is not just normal truth as in objective truth, because throughout this book she actually states that she believes objective truth doesn't exist. Or more correctly, the female system believes that objective truth doesn't exist, because that's just a white male construct.
Okay.
And yep.
Can I just, I'm sorry, I'm like, I need to speak off periodically.
Okay.
Just no offense, but
I know this is a lot to go through.
No objective truth. Okay, so
there's no time either.
If two people disagrees, so the person with the biggest rock wins in this particular formula?
Oh no, because we're all peaceful beings and we delight in.
Yes.
Specifically, she even says that when people disagree, this creates paradox, and women delight in paradox. Apparently,
Okay,
they just love it,
bullshit.
whereas men don't. Men just like things to be rigid and structured, and women love when things make no sense.
Yes, that's why female groups have such deep philosophical divides that they're constantly jarring or jousting over, and male groups are all about, oh, you go boy, you did this, oh, that was amazing, let's all congratulate each other and pat each other on the back and kiss each other's asses, and oh, we don't have any disagreements, we all agree on the same things, that men suck. I just want to point out that what she sounds like is, again, that there should be only one position. You know, like I said, that Christianity is no good because it even allows men to be there. So the inversion is not allowing men at all. I mean, it sounds like this is a way of saying that men's point of view is wrong. Well, actually, what am I saying? It sounds like it is. Like, if you can't, like, literally, she's saying, well, when women's ideas are so inclusive, that's why we should completely reject men's being as, or way of thinking as absolutely wrong, because women are so inclusive. That's why we need to reject people. I was like, what? Okay, wait. The fuck?
This is why the New Age position and all this stuff is that, again, this book, we will get to it, is if you reject the white male system and you embrace the female system, everyone then basically just begins to transcend, because we start liking everything, which literally just means that basically you transcend and
haven't you just created a hierarchy? Like, you're just saying, well, we reject the hierarchy, so therefore, women's opinions are better. Well, you just created one. Congratulations.
Yeah, did I mention that I think that this author is insane and I found her book really frustrating to read?
I'm finding post-it notes?
Yeah.
Lots and lots of post-it notes. I'm not surprised. I'm finding it, like I said, periodically I got to beak off because I'm finding what you're telling me just like how. All right, I've become inured to the fact that feminism is almost a continuous contradiction of itself.
That's because female system delights in paradox.
Okay, yes, or it's just a bunch of bullshit that you can't run a society on. Okay, that's not going to keep the trains running on time, or at least running. Okay, but here's the thing.
Well, that won't happen because the female system doesn't believe in time.
So the female system is inclusive. That's why it rejects male thought. The female system is not hierarchical. That's why it's better than male thought. The female system is more egalitarian. That's why there are no men allowed in it. Like, all right, no, okay, I'm done. I'm just pointing it out. That's it.
Yep, that's fine. So the chapter 6, which is the paradox, dualism, levels of truth. The book asserts that the process of the female system cannot truly be measured in numbers or by instruments. In order to understand the female system, you must relinquish both intellectual and physical control. That's a quote. The paradox she speaks of is right brain thinking, which is white male system is left brain thinking, and so cannot understand paradox. Quote, women delight in paradox and find it stimulating and enhancing. When we experience paradox, we don't care who is in control. We realize that there is no one truth and that all truth is one.
How about
The white male system forces people to think dualistically, either or. The author then writes...
Okay, I gotta beak again. The white male system... Either or. I'm just gonna go back to the whole Christianity thing.
I just had a thought. I just want to mention real quick about the Smithsonian. They had that report or some kind of thing about all of the various examples or evidence of living under a white supremacist society, and one of them was being punctual. So boom, this is about the time thing. That time should not exist. So it
white male supremacy.
Yeah, white. Well, yeah, in this case, but I mean, Allison, you're acting like there's some kind of logical framework to any of this to begin with. It's all about how do we use. I think that these conclusions that Teal Deer is telling us about are being repurposed in other ways. So this is why they're saying things like, well, having schedules and showing up on time those are white
white,
supremacist things, or those are male things, whatever the enemy is
why
at
did
the
they
time.
just come down?
Yeah.
Why did they
this
just come
book
down and
does
be
literally
blunt?
say that non-white people can't into time.
Yeah,
this
of course,
book
so-
actually just says it.
Okay.
I'm surprised that
Sure.
that white male that white supremacy list didn't include having a penis being white.
I was late today, so forgive me, white people.
Yeah, but I'm usually
know your
I'm
rules.
female. I'm female, so I get a pass. I just wanted to point out that the female thought form is not exclusionary, or is not either or. That's why it can be, there cannot be men. That's why that option has to be completely removed. Like it is one. You know what this all sounds like? They just don't like the fact that there exists another point of view in the world, another kind of psychology, another being that is legitimate in and of itself, and they just want to remove it. And I swear to God, you see this in the American Psychology Association's gradual stigmatization and dismissal of masculinity as valid, and framing it as a mental illness rather than its own thing. You see what I'm saying? It's like this is just saturated in this idea that the only right way of being is female.
Yes.
Okay, I'm not insane. So this could be titled "The Only Right Way is Being is Female," because the female way of being is non-hierarchical. That's why it's better. It's inclusive. That's why it's the only one it should exist. It's inclusive. That's why it's the only one it exists, and it's more equal. That's why men should disappear entirely. All right. Okay. Fuck.
Yeah, don't worry. This book expressly talks about how hierarchical thinking is white male system, but then the female system also creates hierarchies in the form of levels of understanding. But again, just don't try and understand it. It doesn't make sense.
Well, no, it's just woman good, man bad. Man shouldn't exist. Like it's just this childish insecurity about the existence of someone, a way of thinking, like an other people, that it's xenophobia, really. It's female xenophobia. It's like, oh my God, those people over on the hills with the penises, they're just evil. And they don't have, their rituals are wrong, and the way that they talk is wrong, and the way that they think is wrong, and like, all you are is a bunch of goddamn, this is like Xenophobia, the book.
I can explain more about the xenophobia in the book.
Sure, or I'm sorry for peeking off there. Continue with
fine. It's somewhat cathartic because I'm seeing in you the frustrations that I had while reading it, and there's some level of enjoyment to that, and also confirmation that I'm not as mad as I think I am going through this. So when the author talks about this dualistic thing, she gives us an anecdote that didn't happen because none of her anecdotes happened. When she was talking to a male student, and she said that the white male system creates either or thinking, and there are other ways of doing things like the female system, like you can have continuums and stuff. Apparently a male student stood up and shouted, "We have to think dualistically. There is no other way to understand the world around us. Besides, if what you are saying is true, then everything I'm learning is wrong." My post-it note just said, "This anecdote didn't happen." Because it obviously didn't. This just does not sound like something a human would say if they're a student in a lecture.
Nope. Yeah, you're right. Also, she's engaging in dualistic thinking. Like, this is the funny thing, is that when you create a monopole, like when you cut off one of the poles, you are not creating diversity, you're removing it. You are actually engaging in either or thinking. You're just saying that one or is absolutely 100% wrong, and you can't engage in it at all. That's the funny thing. It's like this feminism. What are you fucking talking about? A gender spectrum? You only want one pole. You don't want the male pole at all. You want to get rid of it. Remove it entirely from existence. There's no spectrum without at least two poles. That's another thing that really, I hope that my beaking is indeed helping, but I'm just finding it's like, somebody comes up to her and says, you are engaging in either or this thinking when you reject male is wrong, and she's like, derp, a derp, woman good, derp.
Maybe the poles are between women, like the spiritual side and the materialist side, and men are not at all a part of it. I mean, I don't know. So I got a couple super chats. I should read them really quick. Sorry. I won't play the Rumble chant or the Badger chant giggles, but I'll put it on the screen. So I got one from Anonymous for $5, and they say, in my experience, there has always been two distinct currents to the women's rights movement, like a river split in half. On one hand, you have the materialists who write the papers that you're looking at. They are bathed in the anti-spiritual materialism of Marxism and his ilk. The other current is the goddess of the waters culture, which rejects the materialism. I think the hippies and the crystal type. I think the reason that the goddess part was hidden by the materialists was because of the deep hatred of all things religious and spiritual inherent in Marxist-like philosophies. The goddess culture is the part of the family, I guess, of the family they don't like to talk about. Strangely enough, or maybe not so much, it is the male feminists / Marxists, in my experience, who still honor the goddess culture. Anybody want to say anything to that? All right. Well, thank you for that. Very insightful. Appreciate it.
I did.
Okay. Well, you should say something. All right, go.
I was struggling with the mute button because I got like two computers, and then I was like, why is this not unmuting? I'm like, oh wait, I'm on the wrong computer. Mm-hmm. But I just wanted to say, in relation to this, you know that the hippie crystal women are now Nazis?
Oh, if you're referring to the reaction to COVID, sure, but I mean...
Oh, yeah. No.
I mean, they're Nazis according to the pro-science folks.
Yeah, this is something like they're the women who are now into herbalism and natural healing and all of that kind of stuff. They are now considered to be Nazis, or at least Nazi adjacent, by the anarchists that seem to take all of their positions from a corporate PR handout.
You're talking about the commies. It's the commies. Allison. I'm going to call them the commies.
But let's be honest. Do any of their positions differ from basically corporate gov speak?
Commies are not anarchists because they can't. That's
no,
impossible.
They're not.
Those are not compatible. But
I'm just saying that if you're advocating for big pharma, big media, and all of this other shit, like huge, you're basically protecting the pharma getting huge, what is it, like, profits. And I have told them, I said, well, if you're going to give this kind of immunity to pharma, maybe you should not allow them to profit off of it, because that's a huge moral hazard. And these so-called commies are like, no, they should be able to profit. I'm like, really? Anyway, that's irrelevant. But ultimately, the women that this individual is talking about are now considered Nazi adjacent. And I find that fascinating. And I also find it fascinating whenever I go into, like, to get my magnesium and other supplements. They're the only place that still shows white couples with children in their advertising. So I'm maybe there's something to that. Okay. All
right. Sorry. Real quick. No, now the other super chow, and then I'll give it to Teal Deer again. So another anonymous. Well, he's gonna be going. Oh yeah, Teal, did you want to add anything to that other super chow that I just read?
I'm enjoying resting my voice for a few minutes. We've got a while more to go.
Yeah. So Anonymous gives us $5 and says, if you want one perspective on the tendency of the materialist left / feminist / Marxist tendency to ignore religion and religious aspects of their theories by C.S. Lewis's Meditations in a Tool Shed, short to the point, and he witnessed the shift happen firsthand. And then there includes a link to C.S. Lewis essay, Meditation in a Tool Shed. I like watching C.S. Lewis's essay. You can watch a bunch of them on YouTube. They are pretty insightful. All I will say is that I think there have been people in the Christian world that have been talking about this stuff for a very long time. I will make a recommendation. Look up Father Seraphim Rose. everything that James Lindsay is doing videos on, Seraphim Rose was doing it first, and he did it like in the, I don't know, like he's working on it like in the 70s. So I know that like some people might be turned off by the fact that I've even suggested a priest, but maybe you should ask yourself why you're questioning that to begin with, because I think that Christians were among the first people to be thrown into a black category where you're not supposed to want to hear from them. And there's probably a good reason, because Seraphim Rose was talking about this long before James Lindsay even started on this journey. So anyway, thank you for that, and I'm going to give the floor back to Teal'dir. So.
Right, I'm going to go back, I think, to the start of the write-up, because that's actually, I think, going to explain the white male system and the female systems, rather than just sort of picking at these odd bits at the end. I really just sort of wanted to go there because the two end chapters are talking about dualism and levels of truth and female system theology. If that doesn't tell you that this is a religion, I don't know what else will. Like, it's literally there, black and white. We're using the term theology to describe this. We're literally talking about white male system theology and female system theology. You don't really get much more on the nose than that. So we're going to go back to the beginning of the women's reality write-up, and then we'll go through, and this might explain some of this. Some of it I might repeat myself a little bit regarding the first bits of what I've said, but again, this is because these are all separate write-ups written for different reasons. So Schaef, which is the author of this book, wrote a follow-up book in 2016. There will be 1,000 years of peace and prosperity, and they will be ushered in by the women, version 1 and version 2, the essential role of women in finding personal and planetary solutions. This book is written in two halves, both telling the same narrative. The first time it is written in the style of an Irish Cherokee woman and uses poetry, song, and stories to relay information. The second time she writes the book, it's written as a normal book. This would seem to be informed by her musings on white male system thinking and female system thinking. Schaef talks about how, as women get clear within themselves and speak out to their truth, everyone and everything on this planet moves into more life-giving options than what we are currently experiencing. And the reason that I've put that in is because that, from a book written in 2016, very heavily mirrors what was written in this book. This book at the end, when it talks about the white male system theology versus the female system theology, she actually basically explicitly says that the white male system, she actually refers to it as pollution in this book anyway, and how it is leading to exploitation and destruction of the planet, and how the female system will avert that crisis. So literally,
she's bringing the climate religion in then.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, all of that stuff again, because, well, it grew out the hippie stuff in the 60s, so of course.
And you see, okay, guys, I just want to point out that this isn't just academia. You see the threads of this moving into the health industry in terms of the American Psychological Association. The condemnation, the criminalization, the stigmatization, and the othering of masculinity as wrong. You see that being reflected in how people practice this supposedly mental health. And this is just xenophobia. This is women saying, well, there's something outside of us, that must be wrong. It's xenophobes. And these xenophobes are informing how men are treated in the most intimate manner. It's disgusting. And it's very critical to see that there is a direct line from this to actual harm to men, actual policies towards men, and actual things that are said about men in the media, in academia. This is rot, and it's taking lives. And the other thing is that if you think about us in terms of our evolution, let's imagine that Gaia, Mother Earth, in creating men, didn't make a gigantic mistake. And actually, the reason why men have persisted as half the human race is because they exist and are of benefit to the human race. Then condemning men is destruction. It's ultimately a society at war with reality and its own future. right? Because you can't, like, men would never have evolved if they weren't of benefit to human community, to women, to children. Right? They would have just been, because they're a net limiter on reproduction, we'd all just be female asexuals budding off, like offspring. But males persist because there's a reason for them. They benefit the process of reproduction, the health of their species, and human males are no different. So this entire toxic narrative about men being wrong is anti everything. It's even anti Mother Nature. Because you're basically saying, oh yeah, Mother Nature, you made a huge damn mistake. Well, no, she didn't. Even if you believe she exists. You're being apostates. You're thumbing your nose at Mother Nature. Okay, I just wanted to point that out. I mean, and I'm not necessarily saying that everybody has to worship Mother Nature. I'm just saying that even in that context, what these women are doing and saying is, I mean, if you think about Gaia as being some sort of penultimate good, then you have to think that what has happened on this earth is what she, if you want to go that right, designed. Therefore, they are once again defying God or goddess. You see what I'm saying?
That would be true if this author didn't define the female process as being God in the end part of the book. That's a spoiler, so, we'll get there eventually.
So there's nothing greater than a human woman. Not even Gaia. That's what I'm saying. Like, this is absolute hubris and xenophobia. And the fact is that we indulge women so much in their bullshit that we don't call this out. This should have died in the crib.
There is one good thing out of this, though, because I do think this is a good road to go down, is that if you can demonstrate that this is in fact a religion, then and it looks like it has all of the, let's say it has all of the characteristics of one, then you can remove it from like government policy, because then otherwise we're basically living in a theocracy in the way that everything is informed by this stuff. So yes, that would have to go.
Yep. Good luck.
Right.
That's all I'm going to say. Good luck, because that won't happen, because people like women too much. Except for when they hate them and oppress them and create a society for the benefit of men at the expense of women.
It's astounding that this society for the benefit of men at the expense of women has allowed women to this women's xenophobia and belief that men don't have legitimacy to their existence to infect so many of its parts. To become such an overwhelming narrative that's influencing psychology or even making demands of psychology that are being met. This is...
As a note there, I would like to remind people here that this Anne Wilson Schaef woman that we're reading this book, a lot of her anecdotes throughout this book take place in therapy sessions or in groups, either individually or in groups.
So she's actually talking to people in a therapeutic context about this crap.
Uh-huh. And telling people that this stuff is the truth and how it works 40 years ago.
I thought there was no truth.
Is it really any surprise that the APA turned out how it did now?
No.
Are we at the end of history? Did we get there? Is the dialectic over? Of course not.
Not enough people
they're gonna
died
try.
for that.
Yeah, there are men who have died because of this crap.
I mean, the main problem is that people are still alive. At the end of history, we won't be alive because we'll all be vibrating spirits, which means we all have to die to reach the end of history. So feminism is not only just a religion or a cult, it is actively a death cult, because this is the underlying truth to it, that you have to be freed from your mortal coil so that you can escape from the demiurge at fundament. They don't know that that's the underlying part of their religion, but yes, feminism is actually at its core a death cult.
Yeah, well, I was wondering why this constant drumbeat of wanting to destroy itself. Like I have on a previous video that we did on one of Shu's videos, like there's this woman in the comments who's who's talking about how, well, women shouldn't have to find the average man, attractive. They just want to, mate with the top men. I'm like, yes, but the top men don't want you. Like, let's be honest. They'll screw you, but they don't want a long-term relationship with you. And the way that you're structuring society, there's no future to it, because at some point you can no longer borrow on the money that your great-grandchildren are not making, because they're not going to be born. Right? At some point, all of it collapses. This Ponzi.
On the topic of children, if I were to tell you that this author says that women hate their children, would that surprise anyone? We'll get there eventually, but yeah.
Well, as much as I would like it acknowledged that women aren't this amorphous goodness, and perfect mothers, I think that's going a little freaking far.
Oh, no. Women hate their children because their children oppress them by giving them purpose. Because by giving them purpose, they're tying them to the material world, not allowing them to become these vibrational spirit beings. I'm sorry, I'm getting off. I'm getting into the more esoteric side of stuff rather than getting through this.
God damn, that makes so much sense. This is why abortion is a sacrament.
Yes.
Oh.
Because having children gives women a material purpose, and they want women to have a material purpose.
Is being colonized by the masculine. Or and then you have to take care of them and shit, and that's horrible. Oh, this is crawlingly awful.
Yep. Shall I continue?
Oh, okay, yes, I guess.
Okay, so the author's note from the 1992 edition, which is this one that I'm reading, the author has changed her view regarding the white male system and the female system. She states she was in her fairness phase when she wrote this book, and now believes that both the white male system and the female system are both collaborative sides of the addictive system. The addictive system does not support life or living. The female system has since become known to her as the living process system, which is life-supporting and life-sustaining. 10 years on, and the author basically declares that the white male system, which is Gramsci's hegemon, is a system of death for humanity and the planet, and we all need to move to the female system so that we and the planet will not die. This is heavily influenced by New Age thinking via the school of Gnostic immanentism as described by Vogelin, but this combines with the borderline New Age female divine view of humanity, as can be seen throughout the book, and how the author describes the female system, female thinking, and women's ways of knowing and becoming. Becoming is a Hegelian and later Marxist term for the dialectic process, the thesis, antithesis, synthesis. The synthesis is the end. In the end of the process is the becoming. For more information on this, read about Hegel and the concept of Aufhebung, which we covered earlier. So throughout this book, system theory is used, because she's talking about systems, male system and female system. System theory can be the observation of things interacting. That's what it can be. It can also be an immanentist view as described by Vogelin. The immanentist view can be found in the philosophies of Hegel and his dialectic method. The idea that all thoughts have an opposite that results in two conflicting ideas, usually irreconcilable conflict, which is a Marxist term that you'll find them using quite a lot, by the way. These ideas, the thesis and its opposing antithesis, must be melded together in synthesis, the combination of both together thus working out the conflict. The reason this results in immanentist thinking is that the end result of Hegel's thought process is that eventually all contradictions will be synthesized. This will result in the end of history. Humans reaching a not properly defined utopia free of contradiction and conflict. This is within the framework of the death of God, where humans become divine because they know all the things. Even Marxist dialectic materialism uses this framework. They just use different words and obscure the theological underpinning. Page 2 of this book literally says that the understanding and defining of female system theory, comes from synthesis, not analysis. Analysis is white male system thinking. The author mentions how having objective and defined routes to get there is restricting and limiting because it is white male system thinking. Female system thinking is based on process, not results. I'm sure you're seeing how this is very much the dialectic. It doesn't actually care about the result, it just cares about the process of working out the contradiction. Female system focuses on the process of vaguely defined understanding and growth throughout the book, i.e., the synthesis of becoming. The author states on page 4, this book is not the answer and may cause conflict and facilitate growth, aka the dialectic process. Page 5, the author states if men don't understand the mystical woo they are reading, discuss this book with 5 women, 3 of whom are feminists, also known as submit to the struggle session. Would anyone like to chime in here, or shall I go into what is the white male system?
I would like to know, but I will say that struggle sessions are a form of psychological torture.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay. What is the white male system, as this book defines? The white male system is where the power and influence lies with white males. It didn't happen overnight. It's a long process of evolution upheld by everyone. You're probably getting whiffs of Gramsci in that idea. It is just a system and does not reflect reality. Even when the white male system attempts to measure reality and be objective, it is just asserting its dominance and maintaining itself, without the actors within the systems knowing or understanding how or why. See the concept of the panopticon. Does everyone know what the panopticon is in this?
Maybe we should explain it. Go. You can
Okay.
tell the audience about it a little bit.
Okay, so the panopticon is... God, I haven't had enough sleep to remember the name of the guy who came up with it. But the concept of the panopticon is that basically if you've got a bunch of people in a prison and you have a central tower, and it is basically unknown whether or not there are guards in that tower or not, because the tower can see all the prisoners, but the prisoner can't see the guards. Then the prisoners always behave as if they're being monitored when they're not. And so having people basically being unknowing, or have it being unknown whether or not they are being watched or being forced into a pattern of action, they will just uphold the status quo because they don't actually know if they have to maintain it or not. That's at fundament the concept of the panopticon. Is that good enough?
Yeah, that seems good enough. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't know if sorry, 3 hours of sleep. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, it decided.
So the guy who came up with it is Jeremy Bentham in the late 18th century, right? Social theorist Jeremy Bentham. Sorry.
Maybe I'm terrible with names at the best of times, and this is not the best of times. So the white male system, it decides what is knowledge and how it is taught. The white male system envelops all other systems, including Black, Native American, Asian, and female. Everything is racist, everything is sexist, everything is homophobic. You need people who understand the other systems to point it all out, because the white male system can't or won't understand any system other than the white male system. There is a word for that, and
this is essentially the lived. Yeah, this is essentially the lived experience thing. Then is that an example of that? You know, like when leftists say my lived experience, and that somehow is like additional knowledge that the white male
same
system
origin
doesn't.
Point,
yeah, it's like the same
but
idea.
But there was one author, and I can't remember their name at all, who it was, but this was the, white people can understand white people thing, but black people can understand black people stuff and white people stuff, and it was one of the main critical race theorists. And I cannot remember which one it was. Doesn't really matter, because I've said that, and if people really want to find out who it is, they will. But it's the exact same logic being used here. So the author states here she had to learn, with the help of 2 black people, not if she was racist, but how she was racist. The white male system is analogous to pollution. It's everywhere, and you're so used to it that you can't see it. Native Americans saw it first, then blacks, who went their own way to make their own system. This is a basic loose defense for ghettos and gang culture 40 years on, but it isn't addressed. I also have a sneaking suspicion that the author likes to paint the Native Americans in a good light here, because she's one of the one-drop Pocahontas kind of people.
You mean like the noble savage?
Yeah, but I think she's also one of them by, a single drop of blood.
Yeah, sure, right. Yeah.
So she likes to paint them in a somewhat positive light in some cases.
I see.
So, because blacks don't accept the white male system, they have increased rates of strokes and heart attacks, high blood pressure, and ulcers. This is because the white male system says white men are superior. Women also accept the white male system.
What?
Women who accept the white male system also suffer the same. The white male system kills everyone who isn't a white male because they learn to accept their inferiority and die from the stress.
This is okay. So, but why do white women, like, why are they longest living women, except for like Asian women, who will probably live longer?
Embrace the paradox, Allison.
They are,
revel in it.
Perhaps they are long living but long suffering, Allison.
You know what's really funny is this really isn't a paradox, because I see that her conclusions are always the same. What's paradoxical is that she comes to the same conclusions from exactly opposing evidence. Like, evidence of X is evidence of Y, and evidence of Y is also evidence of Y. That probably is not a really good analogy. Everything is evidence of her conclusion, even if it's stuff that's directly contradicting the other stuff.
Mm-hmm. Because she's brainwashed by white male system thinking, and so are you, and that's why. You see, part of the reason that you're trying to understand it is because you're white male system.
Yes. That makes sense.
I am not white male system. I am Allison system. Sorry, no. I reject your fucking...
Mm-hmm.
I will never submit to this crap. Reality, there is a reality. And we acquire a better understanding by listening to other people's point of views. Arguing based on a logic and reason and evidence. We come. You know, that's really ironic, is because when you look at the so-called male view of consensus, like, it's about logic and reason and evidence, and anybody can contribute logic and reason and evidence and their point of view and whatever else, and then we are all just sort of coming together and working on what's real, and then this woman comes and says, no, that's wrong. What you need is a communal system, which basically means I'm always right, shut up.
Yeah.
Well, the author does actually basically say that in this book. We'll get there.
So, you know, because I've said this before. The system of logic and reason and evidence is ultimately an egalitarian system. It is everybody can contribute. Everybody can have an opinion. It will be vetted for how well it adheres to the evidence and the logic, but everybody can have one. Basically, evidence and logic is just a meritocracy about what you're trying to assert. And she's replacing that diversity with, yeah, this is the conclusion that you're allowed. Why are you allowed it? Because I got the boobs. Shut up. Why is this the conclusion? Because I got the boobs. Shut up. That's it. Oh, well, but what happens with trans women? Are they allowed to have access to this kind of gnosis, this kind of absolute truth? I guess that is the religious, that is the, you know how early Christianity, they kept branching off into heresies? You know, that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing the religion of woman branching into a heresy. Can men become women? And then have access to the female gnosis and certainty, or are they permanently scarred by the original sin of penis? Okay, I don't know if I'm adding to the conversation anymore.
No, it's an interesting. That's actually a very interesting way of looking at it. Like, yeah, that would actually fit, because this book very much is wibbly wobbly, undefinable womanness that definitely makes you a woman, and so.
What is a woman?
Everything and nothing. Woman is a process.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure that the adherents of this womanism would probably say that men couldn't, like, if you're born biologically male, you are permanently cast down as one of the well, not even angels, the demons, the demon people.
Probably, but because of the time this book was written, the trans thing doesn't really come up.
Yeah, they
It's a little
hadn't had
unfortunate.
to contend with the
idea
natural
society would
outgrowth.
become so toxic for men that they decided, fuck it, I'm the woman now. Because it's better.
You know, honestly, good for them. I think that's the real problem that the TERFs have with. I mean, the conservatives are basically just the TERFs fucking simps at this point. But I think the real problem that the TERFs have with trans women is that they are what they think are men with moral authority over women, and that just pisses them. It has nothing to do with bathrooms or being afraid of female prisoners. I don't know why the hell you would think that the demonic entities known as the women in female prisons are someone you should care, like worry about. Like, I don't know, maybe they'll choke on a trans woman's bones after they eat her, but who knows? But whatever. That's not their real concern. The real concern is there might be biological males, what they consider biological males, who have moral authority over women. That terrifies them. Okay, now maybe I have gone too far.
No, I'm just passing that. It passes the smell test. It does make sense.
And they're just using
the
bathrooms and the female prisons as ways of sucking conservatives in to the argument that men should never have any kind of moral authority over women. And of course, conservatives are lapping it up because, that's not gonna splash back on any kind of conservative thought. This idea that men might have some moral authority over women, that's not gonna be a problem or contradictory with anything that conservatives might espouse. They always slit their own throats, and it's just okay. All right. Anyway, let's get back to
the white male system. So, the white male system has 4 myths upholding it. 1. It is the only system, and that system is reality. Anyone denying this is labeled crazy, especially women. This leads to the need for white male system validation. See Myth 3. The second myth, the white male system is innately superior to other systems. Interesting, since it's the only one in its worldview, but we'll gloss over that, because what's another contradiction? Myth 3. The white male system knows everything and understands all. This is why women need validation from men. 4. It is possible to be objective, logical, and rational. The fourth myth leads to denying intuition, subjectivity, and feelings, which is female system thinking. The white male system thinking leads men to believe they are innately superior. Page 18, the author says an anecdote that didn't happen to prove her point. In a session, she told people these myths. One man became angry and said, "If what you're saying is true, I'm nothing but a piece of shit. If I'm not innately superior and I don't know or understand everything, then I'm nothing but a piece of shit, just like the rest of you." This is, and then everyone stood up and clapped tier fan fiction. The author does this
bullshit. This is bullshit. I'm pretty sure that, also, I can just imagine her walking in the world that male thought made, plumbing, electricity, gigantic skyscrapers, all of the benefits that she enjoys, and just being like, male thought is worthless. Really? I don't know.
Wait until she complains about climate control.
Climate control.
Wait until she complains about it. She does, in a very funny way.
How maybe we need to split this into 2, because I don't know how much more I can take in one day. Sorry, Teal.
No, it's okay. I mean, if you're okay with it, Teal Deer, I'm okay with it.
I'm okay. Honestly, I want this over with.
I understand.
Okay.
Mostly because I've got all these other damn books that I need to get through to actually complete this project at some point in the future.
How much more content do we have to go through to get to the end of this?
Maybe the same amount twice over of what we've done of this write-up. So
2/3 more?
Roughly.
Okay.
Maybe.
Because this is going to be like a 6-hour podcast.
It shouldn't be. I might be able to get through some of it. There are optional bits which I could cut out.
All right,
I'll just power through, I guess.
I
maybe.
think it's. I know that Teal here wants to get through it, but I think that this is important. I can see that this is very important stuff. It kind of like is in line with the work that Janice Piamengo has been doing, although her work is more historical. But it's sort of making the same case, right? But I think it's important stuff. So I mean, I'm okay with like doing maybe 2, 3 at the most on it, and then let Teal Deer work on the project, and this will give people a sample of what he has planned. And I think I personally think it's worth doing and worth going into. It's an important.
Essentially, what I was asking was, Teal Deer, do you want to adjourn, like, and then do again another show, and or power through?
I'm happy to keep going. My lack of sleep has apparently abated.
So you're
Okay.
I think it's because I'm actually just getting into it. So
Okay, all right, well, so
If
just
you
one
want-
show.
Before you do, I did get another Rumble rant, and I thought I would read it because maybe Tilder can respond to this before he continues. So, NovaFan21 gives us $1 and says, "Can you help me understand what the author means by it's a process?"
yes, we'll do that later because that's the female system. That will be explained when we do that.
Okay.
So, another session, another angry white man said, "If you get power, you'll do the same thing to us that we've done to you." Another anecdote that didn't happen regarding oppressing women and non-whites since forever. The funny thing is, 40 years on, and he was right. See the expansive definitions of racism in CRT, and the past discrimination requires present discrimination rhetoric. There is a part about the author's race consciousness raising. We can skip that because it doesn't really matter. It's not relevant to the feminism bit. So the author asserts the white male system desire to be God manifests in the form of air conditioning and artificial lights. The white male system has, quote, embraced the scientific method and distorted it so as to achieve godhood, end quote. Later in the book, the author will assert that women are just more accepting of the natural environment as is, and thus would not seek to make climate-controlled places. This is the opposite of reality. Women frequently work in climate-controlled environments by choice, and will often only enter a field of work once the environment is suitably controlled, safe, and in a state of homeostasis. The author asserts that in its original form, science was about being open-minded and learning. Women and non-whites distrust science for good reason, because it doesn't make sense. We can be, quote, we can be convinced that numbers are real, though we forget they are only symbols that represent other realities. Numbers are just words in a foreign language. We can learn to speak French and we can learn to speak numbers as well, but this does not mean that numbers have special powers.
Oh, the French ain't real, yo! I missed it! I knew it! France isn't real! It's just an illusion that the Europeans created.
Keep coming back.
French don't real, numbers don't real. It's all just ideas, guys.
We
can
keep
change
coming back
everything.
to this thing with France.
Why is it?
The real enemy, I think. We should be asking the French question.
Are you guys real? I mean, Jesus, those baguettes. Come
I
on,
mean,
that's not real
croissants are
bread.
basically air.
Yeah, also baguettes are basically ways to cut your gums up. There, I said it. They're just mouth torture. Baked goods. All right, no, this is what the okay. What?
Yeah,
What?
this is just the author relying on a fallacy of social construction. It's just we have abstract ways of representing ideas, of representing things that are objectively true, but she's making the cardinal mistake that all of these leftists do, which is not really a mistake, it's by intent, where they basically just say that, well, because we have a socially constructed system for understanding something objective, that means the objective thing don't reals, which is wrong, but it's just the fallacy that they
If
always use.
objectivity is subjective, it's a mutual subjectivity. In other words, people come with a reason, they come with a logical argument, they come with evidence, and they say this is probably approximating reality. and other people are like, yep, let's put this to the test. Oh yeah, it does seem to approximate reality. So basically what they're against is this kind of communal creation of reality. Like we are not creation, but trying to describe reality in a communal sense through a
they oppose the concept of measurement.
They meritocratic kind of communal activity where we come together to try to describe reality, right? They oppose that because boobs real.
Yes.
Boobs equal real.
Yes.
Whatever comes out of a mouth with boobs equal real.
Yes. Hence, it will go on to say, maths doesn't represent anything. It's just a means of white male system to control things. The author asserts this is neither good nor bad, and both the white male system and female system have good and bad points. See the 1992 introduction for the dissonance, because she changed her mind on that. At the time, she was still in her equality and fairness phase when she wrote this, remember, so...
And because
we covered that in the introduction.
Okay, I'm sorry, but because of what men did between the 70s and whenever she rewrote this, she became less enamored of men. Because what men were doing, giving women everything that they damn well asked for, she became more angry at men.
Yes.
Honestly, I think the POAs, like the really dark ones, might have a point. The shit test, it should be responded to with a backhand in Minecraft. What she really needed was to be put in her place. And some man to go to her and say, no, you're getting your funding yanked. Go get a real job. Become a barista at Starbucks. Do something of benefit to the world, because this isn't. But instead, she was indulged. So she got even angrier. Because she got everything she wanted. Therefore, the logical result of that is to get even angrier. Or I guess she didn't get what she wanted because the female system didn't... here's the thing. All right, the female... Let me... This is my observation of what I've heard of this woman so far. The female system is simply a way of saying that women be centered. Okay, and that their beliefs should be centered. But here's the thing. Who's going to center them without the male system?
Well, the female system and the men living under the female system.
Yeah, but the men living under the female system are not going to... Their only use will be the male system that they create to center the female system. Okay. All right, let's...
Continuing on. Okay. Every time the author says the white male system is not bad, this is now known to be either a lie or incorrect. Thusly, we can now, with hindsight, conclude the author believes maths and numbers must be destroyed for the betterment of humanity. We'll cover why that is later. On page 40, men's authority and power is inherited, not earned, according to this author. Men assume birthright, power, influence, statues, etc. This is the opposite of reality. Men work their entire lives to succeed and to provide worth to women. Finally, we get into what is the female system. The female system is philosophical, sociological, psychological, political, and theological. According to this author, just for the sake of being confusing, there are technically two female systems. One is the reactive female system, which is how women survive in the white male system. The second is the true female system, which is variable and changing. It is open-ended. The system will change, and dichotomies between the female system and white male system will be worked out, aka the dialectic. The second system is where women feel safest and can truly be themselves, because it has no constraints, such as hierarchy, objectivity, and time, which is addressed later in the book. Chapter 2. Yes, Chapter 2. The original sin of being female. The author asserts women only attack each other because the white male system has made that their acceptable and preferred target. This is to stifle the growth of the female system. Note of dissonance: white male system suppressed female system while not understanding it or even knowing that it existed, as she said earlier. When women say, "I don't like other women," this is a quote, they're really saying, "I don't like myself." This can be expanded to say, "I don't like femaleness," end quote. The author asserts this means women hold the position that being female is innately wrong. Women attempt to be things they are not, like tough and hard-working, so as to appease the white male system to relieve themselves of feeling of guilt from the taint of being born female. The author relates several anecdotes of women wanting to do better, getting straight A's in school, working on a PhD thesis, and yet still having received job offers despite having not completed it yet. Fearing failure and not being accepted because of the failure, basically women are human and have doubts about themselves sometimes, and they desire to achieve things. The author asserts that this is because the white male system has made women feel as though they are born inferior. The author states male therapists do not understand this innate feeling of inferiority that women have because of the white male system. Men only struggle with feelings of inferiority because the white male system tells them they must be superior at all times. Quote,
Okay,
they cannot understand how deeply the feelings of innate inferiority penetrate our being and how ever-present they are.
Yeah, but yes, because all right, I'm gonna connect some dots here. Prior to the Industrial Revolution, women were a lot more important to the actual survival of humanity. After the Industrial Revolution, progressively their work disappeared. I mean, they had their own sort of like, you know, their own. The home was a unit of production. It was really critical to the survival. So the insecurity doesn't come from men. It doesn't come from the male system. Well, maybe it does, because wow, the Industrial Revolution was basically a result of a bunch of male innovations. And boy, howdy, did it really improve everything. Like when women were in charge of all the water and heating and all of that, we just were plodding along. But then when men were like, "Hey, we can," then suddenly, bam, we're a spacefaring species. We're no longer
automate a large part. The home economy, effectively, large parts of it became automated because
Yes.
men didn't want their women to have to work.
Yes, but they turn around, and that insecurity of not being necessary. Or not feeling necessary for human survival. I mean, this is the psychosis that's come out of that. So yeah, it's great that men got rid of all of women's labor, but then we have this Betty Friedan's problem with no name, which is this ennui and this insecurity that they're useless. And they insist that somehow men are responsible for these feelings of insecurity and uselessness, like this woman is. Like, oh, the male system is making me insecure. No. Yeah, your obsolescence is making you feel insecure. But instead of digging deep and I don't know, making a renaissance of fiction or doing something of benefit to the world, you constructed this gigantic narrative of how the very people who are supporting you are evil for doing so. It's like, this is psychotic. Just sit with yourself and say, okay, I am a woman. What is it that I can give to the world now that I'm no longer as instrumental to the survival of humanity? They don't do that. Like, maybe I can learn to understand something other than myself and use that as a means to become a more individuated person. You know what I mean? Like, have some kind of external standard to live up to. Or even just make a damn sandwich!
Now, she kind of addresses this a little bit regarding how women learn to cope with the white male system.
Yeah, but this is
I can tell you her thoughts on it, if that would help.
But
Or make you
literally,
feel worse.
well, I suspect that her thoughts aren't, oh wow, it was really cool of men to actually remove all of our labor. Yeah, that was not a bad thing that we now have leisure to pursue. I mean, apparently pursue developing some incredibly resentful, whining philosophy about how men removing our labor is oppression. Like, I mean, I see so many women, I'm talking to one now in the comments of the video that I just did, who think that the minuscule amount of labor that people do now in the home is oppression. Like, what? It's not like you're beating laundry against rocks anymore, or making, or I don't know. rendering fat to make candles or any of the other shit that women had to do. It's basically at most a part-time job now, and you still consider it slavery? Like, it's like the jobs in the home become less and less onerous, less and less time-consuming, less and less damaging and dangerous, and women complain more and more about them. It's insane! Is that really what you guys are complaining about? Or is it because you're now no longer, on some level, you all subconsciously realize you're now no longer as instrumental to the survival of humanity, and it's making you feel insecure. The uselessness is making you feel insecure. And then you hide behind, also, you know, being in a relationship with a man, having children requires courage. And you don't have that. You're a bunch of corporate drones who are complete cowards at this point. Okay, like that seems to be more accurate. Or alternatively, men really did construct this entire system to oppress you, to make you feel bad. Okay.
All right. Well, go ahead, Tealia. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to go with how women cope with the white male system because I don't know. It's just funny.
We got to
effectively know. Women trying to refine their purpose here. So the author says that women learn event details to cope with the white male system, remembering dates, talks, phrases, and even specific words used. They only do this so they can prove they are right at all times, so as to counter the white male system telling them that they are wrong because they are born female. I just find that hilarious. So the topic of divorce comes up here. The author asserts that the white male system tricks women into thinking it is fair. Women find out the white male system is not fair when they get divorced, and women suffer emotionally and financially as they are stripped of the last sense of ultimate fairness. The author states she has a female judge friend who said they want to be fair, but can't because the law isn't fair. The hypothesis this female judge wants to exercise in-group preference as hard as possible, but the law says you can't do that. For the record, this author seems to think that divorce is unfair on women and that men basically get away with everything, and that they usually get away with more stuff and more money than the woman does. And I've just got notes on that, like, this is the opposite of reality. Like, we really don't need to cover that. I think I write it somewhere else in the following sentences, but it's just absolute la la land. So there's a story on page 36. The author states a woman was pulled over by a police officer for no reason. She had a bumper sticker that virtue signaled a political orientation different from the state majority, i.e. she was a Democrat in a red state. A scuffle broke out when she was asked for her license and registration. She got arrested, and when in the holding cell began smacking the bars with her shoes and screaming obscenities.
Oh, we gotta stop this for a second. Jojo is booping Teal Deer.
He did. But I think he's done. He was just like, what is that thing doing by my bed? I don't think he's gonna stick around, though. Oh, no, wait. Gonna share space with him.
Yeah, this may be some form of doggy approval. I'm just saying I'm at least enjoying the doggo significantly more than
sorry, he's
the dribble of female system.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Continue.
It doesn't go on for much longer, the female system. Then we get into the woo side of it. So someone told her she wasn't acting like a lady, and she replied, "Yes, I am. White women are angry too." My note here is, and then everyone stood up and clapped.
No, they wouldn't clap about white feminism. They would condemn it, wouldn't it?
Well, this was written in the 90s, though. White feminism, I don't think, was a thing yet, right?
Nah. So her ideals state she should get a feminist lawyer, but she picked a man with a track record of winning. The author states the guy bullshits his way through proceedings by using a giant suitcase stuffed with random papers as a psychological weapon. He did win the case, she didn't go to jail and only had to pay fines. The author asserts that the male lawyer only won because of bullshit and not competence, and this shows the white male system is unfair. Somehow. I also have notes about how this story obviously leaves a lot of stuff out because it's like, oh, this woman only got pulled over and asked for license of registration because of a bumper sticker, and a scuffle just broke out. Okay, so this woman just like randomly started going at a police officer. There's a lot of stuff you're not telling us in this story, but I'm not exactly surprised. So women develop understanding so they can survive the white male system. They gather information on everyone and everything and remember everything about relationships. So, quote, we can understand why this or that happened and we forgive, end quote. Apparently. Women apparently only remember things in relationships to prove they are right and forgive people. They never bring things up from months or years ago that everyone else forgot about in order to point score and be cunty. It's all just them surviving in the white male system and looking to have their sin of being born female forgiven.
How convenient.
I do have a few notes throughout this book that I don't think this author has ever met a woman, but yeah.
Well, she's only met her stereotype of men and women.
Yep.
She has like this. She's got a very sisterhood method of looking at women and how women relate to each other. And I do actually have a post-it note in the front of this book, which is just a Williams 2023. There is no sisterhood. And the Williams 2023 is actually a PhD thesis that looks at women's intrasexual competition and how women basically take each other down pegs all the goddamn time by backstabbing each other in conversation and even doing things like physically messing with each other. Like when women go and get haircuts, the stylists will actually recommend ill-fitting haircuts and actually intentionally take more off than the woman said if they think they can get away with it so as to lower her value. So it's like, I'm sorry, we just have so much psychological evidence there is no sisterhood between women, but authors like this seem to think that women just never are catty or have no form of intrasexual competition, which is just objectively wrong.
What is the book that you're talking about? I'd like to take a look at that. I'm going to write that down.
It's not a book. It's a PhD thesis by Williams. It was published in 2023. There's actually an overview of it on the internet. If you go to Stardusk's channel, the YouTuber, the MGTOW YouTuber, he actually just did a video. It was about a month ago or something like that. Actually,
you know the title?
Yeah, the video was just called "There Is No Sisterhood." That's the video that he did on that study.
Okay, so maybe there's a link to.
So you can go and find that. Otherwise, do I have the link immediately available? Oh yes, I do. There we go.
Okay.
M. Williams research thesis: female intrasexual competition. I will put that in the live show chat.
I prefer to read stuff than watch videos. I know that sounds really hypocritical.
Not really.
All right. So thank you. And I will take a look at that. I wanted to point out that, yes, there is no real female solidarity or sisterhood. It's just women come together against men. And I think that's one of the reasons why women seem to be so repulsed by me. Because I'm like, no, why don't we actually judge ourselves by how we treat men? And they're like, what? You know, and how we treat other women. Because I think that for the most part, like feminists want to justify their horrific treatment of other women and their use of other women as resources. Like I've seen that when I look at the feminist DV, like financials, these women are basically just doing nothing and using the supposed strife of women in domestic violence situations to make lots and lots and lots of money. And that's it. They're not doing anything for them. They're just skimming off the top. They're using other women as a resource. And then you see how much feminists bully women who don't agree with them, or even women who slightly disagree with them. And it's like, this is all like, maybe we could set aside this automatic contemptible behavior towards men, because this is the other thing. When women don't judge themselves by their behavior towards men, what happens is that it seems like men become a scapegoat for their behavior towards each other. And I'm like, no, let's not do that. Let's not use men as a scapegoat for our behavior towards other women, and let's actually look at how we treat men as a valid moral thing. Like that we shouldn't treat men badly, and we shouldn't excuse our bad treatment of other women on men. Let's be better.
That
And-
sounds
and
like
that's what-
something a woman living under the male system would say.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I don't have this like rose-colored view of women, giving women a gigantic excuse like, "Oh, it's the male system that's making me beat you in the head." Like, is just going to empower female abusers of both men and women. Okay, you're right. I'm just a freak in the freak kingdom. Okay,
All right.
just
Right.
continue.
Yes.
Tilter.
Shall we go? Okay, so we have actually not a huge amount left to go, but I guess it depends how quickly I read through it and how much you want to shout at me for reading.
I'm not
Um,
shouting at you, Teal dear. I'm just shouting at the person you're talking about and
Yeah. Okay,
the bullshit in her head.
Yeah. So the next interesting part here, this is where you start getting to the new age woo of this, the solar plexus hole in need of healing. So page 40 and 41.
What? The solar plexus hole in need
Yes,
of healing?
yeah,
Is that
yeah,
the bonus
yes.
hole?
Freud would say yes, but this author says no.
Okay.
But like I said, we're getting into some of the new age woo here. So
You have a
hey-
hole that needs filling, lady. Yes,
Yes.
you do.
yes. So page 40 to 41, Freud and Erikson assert women have an inner hole of being that needs filling. Freud and Erikson suggest penis and baby, not because having a family is fulfilling for many women. Married women, my note here, married women consistently report greater levels of happiness. No, it's because they are men, and hence they see things as penis in women because men.
Okay, can I just point something out? In my experience, a lot of men also engage in intrasexual competition by tearing the fuck out of other men and saying, "Nah, sister, you don't need a man." I've seen this with feminist men quite a bit.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much with non-feminist men, but holy shit, feminist men are really toxically have toxic levels of competition with other men.
They are always the best men in every room that they're in.
They're the best men they are the one good man ever. The one man who figured out that women should be provided for and protected in
This
all of
author
human
actually
history.
addresses guys like that in this book.
Really?
It's quite funny. She refers to them and how they use it to manipulate women. It's actually quite interesting. You might actually enjoy that part.
Well, I mean, it's probably accurate, but it's coming from a very negative place. Like,
Yes.
I'm sure she doesn't condemn the fact that they tear the crap out of other men.
No. But you
No, of
know,
course
we've
not.
got to try and take the positives where there are positives. We can have one
we, though?
nice thing, I
Okay.
guess.
Yeah. For our
so the
own
author-
sanity, we shall take the positives where we can find them.
Yes. So the author asserts, so this is going to Schaef now, the author asserts women experience the inner hole, a void in the solar plexus. This is a hole where they maintain their original sin of being born female. They often adopt physical postures where they fold their arms over their solar plexus and hunch in on themselves to protect this vulnerability. The author notes also, we often cover it with fat. Which I think is just kind of the proto health at every size message sneaking in there, but again, the book's 40 years old. So yes, the patriarchy / white male system is making women fat because they feel vulnerable, because they have a hole, because they were born wrong. The author states directly, women have eating and drinking problems so they can shrink and fill this void of female sin. Which I just think is... I think that is just a fantastic phrase. That is
Wow.
that is like a metal album song title, "The Void of Female Sin."
No, that is pretty good. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Brutal.
You know what's really funny is I don't feel that. Like, I don't feel a void of female sin. Like, I don't feel like being a woman. I think that being a freaking autist is really what really got me throughout my life. But I don't feel like it was being a woman. In fact, I think being a woman allowed me to be less condemned for being an autist in some way. So I don't understand that. The void of female sin. Really?
Well, it's
Okay.
just the original sin of being born female that this author thinks.
Yeah, but what? Like,
Is it because like, you know, I was thinking the saying, idle hands are the devil's playground. And I feel like as convenient as we made the lives of women by like making all these inventions and all these like advancements in technology and using it to make women's lives easier, the more spare time they have, and the more spare time they have, the more resentful of their own existence they become.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's not what this is, you know.
Yeah.
Kind of like I'm kind of talking to Lindsay a little bit, like while you're reading stuff, and she was saying that because we were talking about women's paranoia, like a female paranoia of being. They're paranoid about that, like in life, because there's so much uncertainty, because the world is uncertain, right? And so women are more risk averse, and so they're more likely to be paranoid. It's like, you know, today I was running some errands, and my car is old. It's from 2008. It has over 200,000 miles on it. And so when I'm driving it around, I don't really think about it too much, but Lindsay always hears things like, did you hear that? That's the car. Like, something's wrong. I can't tell. I went to the mechanic and I told him about it, and the woman that works at the mechanic shop, she said, she basically, like, you know, reassured me that the issue is a non-issue, because she knows what it is, because I've taken the car in before, and I was like, all right, as long as I know that the car's not going to fall apart one day, right? And she was like, no, you know, and I said, well, my wife says she hears things and I don't hear things, and she said, it's probably best, like, sometimes just not to tell them. And then she said, because I'm a woman, I know. And, like, you know, so I don't know. I just that's that void that you're talking about. It sounds like that
Paranoia,
you know, that the crisis.
insecurity.
It's the crisis of being, and women are experiencing it in that way.
Yeah.
And a lot of it
crisis
probably has
of
to do with the
boredom.
fact that they have so much. Yeah, because they have all this spare time to be in their own heads.
And they don't like it in there.
There is something to be said for that regarding effectively utopianism and how it can't exist. And actually, I'm going to reference the book again, The Science, Politics, and Gnosticism by Vogelin, this first book. He does actually, in this book, talk about utopia and how utopia can't exist, because effectively, utopian thinking effectively has to remove sin from humans, and you can't actually do that. And effectively, that is why you will never be able to have a utopian way of thinking, because humans will always find some way of screwing it up. And so this is, I think, partially a reflection of this attitude that you've got with, you know, women like this. Their lives get easier and easier and easier. But they can't remove this, like, paranoia from themselves, and also just their desire to complain about things and have men do things for them. Like, it just seems to me that no matter how perfect a world you live in, humans will always find something to whinge about.
Yeah. And I think it's been particularly bad for women because, and you know, it's not unsympathetic.
I recall authoring a video about this called The Cycle of Oppression Inflation fucking years ago.
Yeah, but it's, I mean, to be honest, it's not
It never goes
completely
away.
unsympathetic that you lose your job, basically, and you're like, what the fuck am I now? And then you create feminism to fill the hole. Because that's basically what it is.
Yeah, women entering the workforce, it was effectively the substitute for the lack of the home economy.
Yeah,
the
and like,
Industrial Revolution destroyed. And it's funny that women are now miserable.
yes, and the funny thing is that when feminists look back in history, they completely erase the importance of the home economy. And they completely minimize the kind of the power that it wielded, and the importance, the power, and the amount of self, I think, that women got from it. Like even in the 60s, Ayn Rand, I think it was the 1960s, might have been the 1950s. She went on a I don't know, like one of those talk shows, the original podcast. And she was talking about how women just have their own thing. And so they're not interested in the feminist message because they got their own thing. And at that point in time, women still sort of had their own thing. There still was, like, I guess, more rural, more homesteading, less of this kind of hot box flower housewife idea that's very new, very Hollywood. And she was right. Like, women in the past, if you ask them, they would say, no, we don't need feminism because we have the power of necessity. We're essential to the running of the human race. And once that was taken away, the more that was taken away, the more they got involved in feminism. And that is the whole that this woman is talking about. The
other thing is, which is funny, is that it was partially taken away by their own demands.
Yes, but people are famously self-destructive and lacking in any insight. Like, if you are in a situation where you so-called lost the necessity, and that's what I think that women are seeking in these jobs, is like some kind of sense of purpose, but they're never going to find it because it isn't connected to their femininity. It's connected to how well they actually integrate into the male world, I suppose. So they're never going to be content with it, is what I'm getting at. It's never going to be a source of contentment, which is probably why they're miserable, and they're becoming more and more and more miserable. And nobody wants to solve this problem because nobody wants to look at it. They all just want to blame men for it.
I might suggest that actually part of the reason why some sections of industry are failing is because they're trying to fix it for them.
And you can't.
But they're adapting their industries to a way that those industries don't function because that new method of functioning would satisfy women. But then that's why those industries fail.
Well, if the goal stops becoming the goal of the industry and starts becoming making women feel good about themselves, I guess that's the rise of all those bizarre, like, adult daycare jobs where you get a prestigious title and all you do is eat snacks and take naps all day. And then, play in the playroom. It's like, this is a job. This isn't a job. This isn't an industry. It's basically just something that is constructed to provide succor to a woman. And that's it. Nothing is being done except a woman is being treated like a child. And that's making her feel good. She got a little title, means nothing. It has no responsibilities, but she got a little title. It sounds prestigious. And she's got her blankie, and she's got her place where she takes her naps, and she's got her snacks, and she's got time where she goes with the other women and they chat about nothing and do nothing. And then that is the world that we want to construct. And we're constructing it out of the bones of the system that keeps everybody alive. Good God.
All I'm hearing is that this is just a bunch of white male system methods of forcing snacks into women's void of female sin by a different method.
Well, a lot of women have been forcing snacks into their void, that's for sure.
I'd like to think that I'm capable of making my own original thoughts. Like, I don't think this woman has original thoughts. She basically has Hegel plus woo. Yeah. Hegel plus boobs equal right.
Yep.
And that's like, okay, am I wrong? Hegel plus boobs equals right is her entire thesis.
Pretty much.
Okay, that's not an original thought. That's not an original insight. I think connecting the rise of the industry with the destruction of women's role in human survival with the rise of feminism and their anger towards men is more of an insight than any of this shit. And I like to think that I'm capable of making these kinds of insights without them actually being the male patriarchy coming through me and controlling my lips and gums.
Okay, I think I've got a means of phrasing this very original thought. The Industrial Revolution and its consequences have been a disaster for humanity.
Well, it may end up being a disaster.
I've heard that before.
No, that's a very original thought, Brian.
Oh, okay.
I would like to say that it might be that we can overcome this. Because I think I ultimately know what the underlying pressures of all of this is. And if we can actually address them, then what can happen is sort of what happened when Constantine moved the capital of Rome to Constantinople and gave clemency to the Christians, which ended up
used to be Istanbul.
Yeah. No, that now it's Istanbul.
It's in Istanbul now, but it was Constantinople.
Yeah, you got it a little reversed.
About that once, yeah.
Anyway, but that reinvigorated the empire. Like the very thing that the empire persecuted ended up reinvigorating it for another 1,000 years. So we could go that route. We don't have to completely die. We can just change, which is like the most frightening thing for human beings. Often they prefer death to change. Look at the couple, like the 600, 800 people in the South Tower when the plane struck the North Tower. We're like, yeah, maybe we should just stay. Of course, it didn't help that the Port Authority was telling them to stay, but they didn't want to let go, so they stayed.
So,
and then they died.
All
right.
I wanted to. So we've been going for almost 2.5 hours. I don't know how much longer. We should go, and I know there's a lot more, and I'm actually really interested in doing.
Wait.
I want to let you know what I did. So I did a poll about a half an hour ago, and I said, "What do you think about?" Like, you only get so many characters, so pardon the framing of my question, but what do you think of the breaking this up into episodes? And 41% voted break it up, 30% said get her done, and 30% doesn't care. So there's like indifference there. So I'm just letting you know what the audience said. This is a democratic chat, and that's what they voted for. But we could keep going if you guys really want to. And then the other thing is I got a super chow, and I wanted to read it before we continue, from Great Indoors, who gives us $10 and says, when are we getting to the midsummer part where they are going to start burning people alive to please their inner demons? Because that's the trend I'm seeing there. Or here, sorry. Anyway, so that's it. I just want to say that.
Well, I can finish the bit about women's void of female sin, and we can reassess.
Definitely want to hear about that sinful
yeah.
hole.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
that's
the female system would help to heal and shrink this hole, but it is way too easy to rip open again, such as losing a primary relationship. This is because women are using male validation to fill her hole.
What?
They are making this way too easy. I'm not going to sit there begging for it.
Yeah, I mean, it is true that women do take some value from men, and men do take some value from women. I actually have no problem with that. But it's just everything else that's attached to that message, which is nonsense.
God forbid women have a relationship with a man, take some value from it, and he dies or something, and then they are like, oh my God, I'm in pain. Like, what kind of unhuman, like...
Hillary Clinton.
What kind of awful anti-human connection is this crap? I know that my wording is not great, but yes... Connecting with another human this is what it is. This is just cowardice. Like, she's just encouraging more female cowardice. Oh, don't have a relationship with a man. You're opening yourself up to being wounded. Yes, everybody does when they have a relationship. In fact, it's inevitable that a relationship will hurt you. Either it will end because of some incompatibility, or it'll end because someone dies. But that's not why we're on this earth, is to just be afraid of opening ourselves up to vulnerability. And I don't even know how this became the male system's problem. It's just human. Like, no matter what happens throughout human history, you opened yourself up to loving something, a cat, a dog, a person, a man, a child. That could be taken away from you. So she's basically turning into some kind of self-righteousness, a fear of loss. It's you know what? A lot of feminism seems to be justifying female cowardice. I'm just saying that. Turning female cowardice into self-righteousness.
The crisis of being, paranoia about being, and like not knowing how to handle it. And maybe like women should be, we're always like, feminists are always trying to take I think one of the consequences of this toxic masculinity argument is that men should be more like women, but also in the ways that men should not have to live or seek a purpose because women don't seem to feel as though they have one, so they don't think men should either. And so men are driven by purpose. This is something that we've been talking about with this loneliness thing that people are picking up on and noticing now. I think it's because men lack purpose because they've been told they shouldn't have one. But maybe the reverse is true. Maybe women should also have it. You know, like Lindsay has been doing a lot of digging into her, her family history. No, her family history, and like learning about what her great ancestors did, and like, you know, we're talking about people who were working 3 jobs when they were 12 years old. Like you know how, and they were grateful. Like, you know, there was a lot of grace around how hard life was because that was what you knew. And now, you know, somebody could just have a part-time job and complain. So, and it's not just because like of industrialization or whatever, but because a lot of these people that were going through this, it was like in the 1900s, maybe like, you know, earlier in the century. So, but it's about purpose. So I think that it's one thing to say, you know, we're so advanced technology-wise. People have a lot more free time. Sure, I mean, that's true. Like, it doesn't take all day to clean your house anymore and do the laundry and whatnot. But like, you should be filling your time with other important things. This is supposed to give you more time, not feel like your time is worth less, right? So I think that the thing is that men, in general, I'm not speaking for all men, they are seeking purpose. They want to be like doing something good. They want to make the world better. They want to build out the garden, right? Like as it was said in the Garden of Eden, like they want to build Adam's to build out the garden in the world, and that is basically saying to make the world better. And men want to do that, but we haven't done that with women. We've told them they can just like live, and the thing is that just exist, right? And that's why they become so materialist, and like they're like the biggest consumers. We're always talking about men as consumers, but it's really women, right? And they get all that stuff and they're not really satisfied, and then of course that's why I think this woo thing is coming out, where, you know, this woman is trying to like fill that hole and she doesn't like the materialist approach that the Marxists have. But her approach isn't really any better anyways, because it's the wrong... It's
anti-male.
Yeah, because it's anti-male. It doesn't include the male perspective. It blames men for women's lack of purpose. And the truth is that women should be seeking purpose. And for many of them, it's probably something that they have ignored. Like, you know, something like family, or caring for their community, or being involved, you know, in that way, or growing something, for Christ's sake, right? So, I don't know.
Purpose comes from...
Yeah.
Purpose comes from recognition that there's something greater than yourself.
Yes.
Or something outside yourself at the very least. And if women are going to find purpose, they're going to find it in men. Mm-hmm. In men. Mm-hmm. Not in spite of men, or to spite men.
Yeah.
Like, it's as simple as that. And so, I mean, ultimately, we can talk about... I don't know
if I'm making sense, though, but...
No, you are making sense. It is a situation. And the thing is that when I hear, for example, we got a comment on one of the previous videos that women's hero's journey is their first period. No. Women's hero's journey is their last period. Like, that's the moment where they cease to... like, the whole Red Riding Hood myth is about how you need to integrate the masculine, you need to integrate the external into your psychology in order to deal with the process of becoming, no longer being able to have children, and no longer being defined entirely about being female. Because that, you know, when you're postmenopausal, that's all gone. It's done. What are you going to have left in your life? And the idea that women are fine in of they are, they're not. Like, look around you, guys. Look at the women today. Look at the shit that they put out on TikTok. This is the result of saying, yeah, women, you're all fine as you are. You're not. Or that women have no hero's journey. It's just having a period is all they need. Yeah, well, this is the result of that. Of having no external standards for women. This is the women that result. So no, obviously there's something missing. And not just that, I mean, like, literally, feminism is that scream of a purposeless individual, the hole in the solar plexus, which is purposelessness. And the irony is that she has continued to perpetuate that hole by denying the importance of an external standard, by saying that, boobs equal me right, so no external standard at all. And so while you're going to continue to have that hole in your solar plexus, because what's supposed to be in there is something that you strive for, something that you become better for, something external to you. And yeah, if there's going to be anything external to women, it's got to be men, because men are by definition external to women. And I'm not sure why all of these women are so terrified of that thought, that you just have to accept that maybe caring about men is sort of part of your purpose in life. And without that, you're just going to constantly be complaining about this hole in your solar plexus. You're constantly going to be feeling like your life is worthless, because it is, because you're not doing anything for anybody else but yourself. And, and also kids can be involved in that, and community, but it seems like men is the first step. And I think that's reflected more in the hero's journey for women. Getting married, extending yourself to understand another human being who is different from the primal feminine, shall we say. And yeah, that's what I have to say on that. Is there anything more on this particular topic, the hole in the solar plexus?
Yes.
Okay, let's finish it. I have some craziness that might ground a lot of this stuff if we want to go through it.
Page 42, the author states the whole contains the essence of being female in the white male system. Women fear being alone because they need male validation and goodies to absolve them of their sin of being born female. Women only seek marriage to acquire validation to fill their hole by finding a man who will absolve them of their sin.
This is bullshit.
Yes. Shall I just get through this?
Yeah, sure.
Because, yes, we will be here a while otherwise. So note, I actually agree people should not externalize their sense of validation or locus of control and responsibility. This must be cultivated from within. However, this is not unique to women. Men also yearn for things outside themselves and external validation from others. Usually women, since women provide men their sense of value, lest they undertake long, hard reflection and self-growth so as not to require this external validation.
Women require... Okay, wait, just I need a point of clarification. So it's men who need to do this growth, not to require this validation from women?
No, this is me. Say this is my note here.
Okay.
That men yearn for things outside themselves, but you can undertake long reflection and self-growth so as to not require it. But, it's just a thing that you can do. I'm making no commentary on whether or not that...
Yeah, but do men ever really do that, or they just simply find something else, like physics or religion?
If they MGTOW, then they do.
Yeah, but do MGTOW really find something external, like another form of meritocracy or endeavor, like hobbies or
yes, but
academic pursuits?
It's just not external validation from women, but it's still
so
validation from other things.
But other things, and honestly, I think that's also an expression of human courtship behaviors, like our approaches to understanding the mysteries, penetrating the mysteries of nature and stuff like that. Okay, can we continue?
Okay. Yeah. So the author of this book literally does not understand men at all. She assumes all the work men do to cultivate themselves, to grow and get better and gain competence, is just a birthright handed to them because penis. She is incapable of seeing the male struggle and drive. Page 46, the author states she is not obnoxious. She is only told she is obnoxious because she is female in a white male system. She filters her failures in life and finds that 90% of it is not because she is wrong, it's society that is wrong.
Do they know something we don't? They're led by a woman. What does a woman know?
The author asserts that women are always told they cannot be the in-group because of their sin. Women learn to lie to themselves and others about what they need and want, but once they open up to other women and they all learn they actually are an in-group, they begin to heal and their holes fill. My note here, this is weird. Women have a strange dualism. They have automatic in-group preference and the halo effect. However, as Williams 2023 noted, there is no sisterhood, and women constantly take each other down pegs in social standing so as to elevate themselves. Other studies regarding outcomes with women indicate women will reject a $100 payout if someone else receives $200 in favor of themselves receiving $50 and the other person receiving $0. Other studies have revealed women are more likely to renege on previously struck deals so as to please another person in the moment, as opposed to men who prefer sticking to bargains made. Women receive a societal boon for being female, their bad behavior is excused, and they are perceived as being better than. Simultaneously, women also see themselves as being amazing, yet they are also duplicitous and backstabbing when compared to men. This book contains much New Age woo about this sisterhood aspect of women coming together, and asserts women are only catty cunts to each other because the white male system makes it so. Also of note, the author implies if women had more sense of self from working, they would be happier. Women's levels of unhappiness are consistently rising the more they attempt to fulfill the male role. Page 48 apparently states that society seems to lament, why can't women be more like men? Continuing with the whole, this is the last paragraph about the void of female sin. At page 49, women are angry and should be angry. Anger runs their lives. They express their anger in many ways, making other people work hard, seducing men and leaving them hanging, being a good housewife and making men depend on her so they can't function without her. The good Christian woman, the author calls this the worst of them all, interesting because socialism is the religion that must replace Christianity. She goes without dessert to make other people feel guilty. All of this is because women are just angry because white male system. This is why we must destroy the white male system and institute the female system.
Destroy the white male system, huh? Okay. And I would argue that this is all just an expression of women who are served by men.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly. Like, this is the psychological knots that she puts herself in to avoid just being grateful. You know?
Yep.
And you don't have to like not deny the fact that losing your purpose might have had a severely negative effect psychologically. I think that we can say that at this point in time, that maybe one of the worst effects of the Industrial Revolution was to take away women's jobs, take away the home economy, because it really fucked women over mentally. And then all of the rise of this bullshit about how women are just fine in and of themselves, like well, yeah, okay, well, this is what results. These are the women that result.
Mm-hmm.
And they are nutcases. Okay, so yes, women need their own hero's journey. Yes, women need something external to themselves. They need to be told that they need to get the fuck out of their heads and think about something other than themselves, or they go bonkers. Okay, and this woman is insisting that the problem isn't that women are in their heads. The problem is that patriarchy is. It's like this. She only understands one way of dealing with the world, which is to continuously cast men as the ones responsible for things. You notice that? Like,
well, she does that when she talks about men and their need to be God, which is coming up next.
Oh God, okay.
And she talks about the male ego a lot, which is quite interesting. Never mentions the female ego, but male ego.
Okay, but ultimately this seems to come down to, I can't take responsibility. I have to shove it onto men. Why is it that nothing is improving? Well, it's because you have been trained, and I would honestly say that this is, and I'm not saying that men have deliberately done this, or society, I think it just sort of fell in that way. This woman has been trained to constantly frame things in terms of male guilt. And because she's been trained to constantly frame things in terms of male guilt, she can never take the responsibility to fill the hole in her solar plexus. And that hole in her solar plexus is a sense of herself having efficacy in the greater world. and having an effect on somebody else besides herself and other women, which would be men. And that hole, how do you fill that hole? You fill it with men's issues and recognition of them. There you go. That's how women fill the hole, by recognizing men's vulnerabilities. Because when they see men's vulnerabilities, they see their effect in the greater world. And suddenly they see themselves for the first time ever as individuals. Is that too woo?
Nope.
I think that
People
we've
need purpose.
reached levels of woo never thought possible just by going through this book.
Yeah.
It gets worse. This is nothing so far.
Yeah. But you have to understand that this is a constrained animal. Like, literally, she's a milking cow whose entire world is creating the milk of male guilt. And she does not understand the world outside of being that thing that produces guilt for men. And she just basically her brain is institutionalized. And I can explain that more because I know that's really confusing, and I will eventually, but not in this context, because live streams are not really good for my kind of shit that I talk about. I guess that's not a really good way of putting it. Like, I feel like when I talk about the esoteric stuff that I talk about, that it doesn't really work on a live stream. People get confused. So I'm going to make some videos on this. I think they might be some of the most important videos I make. Basically explaining what the psychological role that feminism provides in perpetuating our society. Because there is actually, it has a function. And I've realized what that function is. And I've realized why women like this are incapable of seeing themselves outside of that function. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. We're talking about the hole in the solar plexus.
Men as God needing to be God.
Okay, but honestly, I can't do more than 3 hours.
Okay.
Okay, so we got sort of we're at the point where I think we need to maybe do some super chows. I also wanted to maybe operationalize all of this woo in an exchange that I had as a result of a very short video I did. What do you think, Brian? Can we do that as in the last 7?
Well, yeah. So I'm okay with whatever. Teal Deer, do you feel like this is a good place to pause it, or do you want to get to another little milestone and then you feel like it's good? Because it's a lot of content, but it's totally worth it. So
yeah, we've got men as God and needing to be God. We've got how the white male system oppresses women, the white male system relationship to children, the relationship to rage, therapy. Goodness. Chapter 5, the white male system as pollution, the definition and defining of relationships, sexuality, friendships, and then we get into the dualistic and the theology section at the end there.
Yeah. Okay.
So there is a fair amount left to go over.
Okay, then maybe we should let all of this marinate.
Yes.
and
this is
what? Go ahead.
I'm just saying, Tealder, this is a lot for people to digest.
Yeah, I think that it was a lot for him because he's the one who put all this together, and I'm sorry that you made such a sacrifice.
This is just the beginning.
Yeah,
it's going to get worse.
Oh, I know. It's not even a rabbit hole. It's like those worms from Dune. But okay, so what we'll do is we'll stop it here, and we'll plan another day to do another part of this, maybe soon.
Mm-hmm.
I have a fireside chat with Paul Elam on Monday, and
how about Wednesday?
We could try Wednesday. Yeah, we could try Wednesday of next week if Teal'dir is okay with it. I mean, it depends on how you're gonna feel, I guess, around that time. But I
think the next show will be a lot will be shorter because we won't have as much content to deal with, right, Teal'dir?
It will be because there's this. It's basically the last half of this write-up, and when you consider that we've done the first half of this and the it other two smaller write-ups as well going into it, it it won't be nearly as long.
Yeah.
It'll be maybe about half this amount of time, hopefully.
Well,
I guess
mean,
it depends how triggering it is.
Yeah, I'm excited to get through the rest of it. So then what we'll do is I'll read out Richard Bierre's Super Chow, and then Allison can give her closing thoughts, and then we'll...
Oh, well, no, I want to show you guys something. This is a video that I've been working on. I put out, I just sent it to you, Brian. Well, you can do the Super Chow, but I want to...
But I thought is it the Mia Khalifa thing?
Yes, it is the Mia Khalifa thing, but I have edited it. And also, I want it as an example of the hole in the female solar plexus. Like, I think it's a perfect example of it.
Let me see if I can download it. I'd have to, like, set up my...
I can read Richard's statements while you're doing that.
Go ahead.
Okay.
You're not letting me do this.
All right. He's John Cena. Richard Bierre writes.
Oh, yeah. Hold on. I think I got something for that. Because whenever he puts it in, I think he wants me to play the sound, so...
And his name is John Cena!
Okay, there you go. Are you satisfied, Richard?
I'm sure he is.
Okay, he sends us $5 and he says, when farm tractors were first developed, they didn't have headlights on them because it was thought that all the field work would be completed before sunset. There's a notion that if a technology will make tasks take less time to complete, more tasks need to be added to a workday to maximize productivity. These adult daycare jobs are most prevalent in locations where having either an office or headquarters in a particular city adds to the prestige of a company as to how serious or legitimate the particular company is. Very good point. There are entire office buildings that exist solely to add legitimacy to their company and have absolutely no productivity whatsoever involved. And that might, because my aspect ratio is like top, like portrait, it might look a little weird, but let's do it anyway. Let's do this live.
Do what live?
This
thing?
Whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah, I'm trying
I'm
trying to open it, but like Discord doesn't like the video. It's not showing me anything. So I gotta try and do this a different way. I'm sorry. Maybe I can drag the file into a browser.
There was a previous super chat that this was also from Richard Bierre. This is the deep lore of Richard's conversation. This is as far as AI replacing office jobs go, I remember a news magazine show segment during the internet gold rush days where some firms which were providing services with a very small staff would hire job title fake workers so that clients would see a very fully staffed office to cater to the needs of the customers. Tim Pool mentioned a company in NYC that had a 12-story office building full of people who didn't know what their individual contributions did for the final product. A different version of the TikTok girls bragging about their do-nothing adult daycare jobs at social media companies. Yeah, that's sort of the situation. You know, whatever these industries are doing, their main goal now is to try to make women feel better about themselves. So you got a silly little prestigious title, and then you got snacks and a nappy blanket and all this other shit that these children need because they're fucking cowards. All right,
so here I got, let me share the screen with you guys. So I gotta stop sharing my OBS really quick, and I will instead share this Mia Khalifa video.
It's my edit.
Well, your edit of the Mia Khalifa video, but okay, let's listen to it.
Married at 18, divorced at 21. Second marriage. Married at 25, divorced at 28.
I've been going to this high school for 7.5 years. I'm no dummy.
Marriage is not a sanctimonious thing.
I'm no dummy.
It's a commitment you make to someone. It is paperwork. I kept the ring.
She's no dummy.
I know it's difficult to fill out paperwork.
Specifically, the paperwork in an office.
Okay, so that was my ridiculous... Yeah, there you go.
Not bad.
Yeah, that was my edit, but I
don't know why anyone would want to take advice from Mia Khalifa about, like, long-term relationships and marriage commitment.
Apparently there's some women in my comments who do.
Byray...
Byray says, I love how you edited it. I think that's sarcasm. That's a bit of backstabbing. That's the sisterhood. What she was saying in the actual video, just because you are married does not mean you need to stay in that relationship no matter what. There are so many marriages which continue for the kids, but if the parents get divorced, blah, blah, blah. If you cannot make the marriage work, you are an abusive marriage, just get out. And then I said, but make sure to keep the ring. Also, the way that she phrased it, marriage is just paperwork, is bullshit. She shows that what she values in ending a relationship isn't about losing hopes and dreams in a companion, but inconvenience. Looking like a smug bully didn't help her case here either, because in the original, she looked like she was enjoying the idea of harming another person.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Finally, leave if you're abused is basic bitch advice. It doesn't need to be said, and that wasn't what was said. What was said is, if you're not getting what you want out of the relationship, leave. What is that thing you want out of the relationship? Companionship? People who want companionship from the relationships don't create these kind of TikTok disasters. Or keep the ring. And Byray responds with, yes, it is just paperwork was a bad take on her part, but the rest of the take is its commitment, blah, blah, blah. This is solid advice, and the majority of the takes against her is lol, okay, but that was not my take. Lol, whatever, sex worker. I didn't mention the fact she was a sex worker, except to say that what she did seems like prostitution with extra steps, because she got married, got divorced, she went through a whole bunch of paperwork, and she apparently kept some of the shit that her partners gave her. Sounds like prostitution with extra steps. What you want out of a relationship depends on you. If I marry a man who's nice to me before marriage but ditched all the housework, etc. on me, I'm going to put in effort to communicate with him and fix that. If it doesn't change, though, I'm out. I'm not going to waste my years being a mother to a guy who's supposed to be my partner in life. I said, look at the expression of triumphalism on her face when she describes leaving. Moving that actually makes her less like an abusive asshole, leaving only a bunch of memeable silliness. I could have made her look like a demon. Instead, I made her look funny. As for being someone's mother, you can always do what I did. Marry a guy who stays at home. Of course, you have to learn to deal with the anxiety of being the one who makes sure all the bills are paid. Sound good? And she says, the stress of making sure the bills are paid. I'm an engineer. I already pay my bills, thanks. Nice try trying to put me down like this, though. I'm not exactly sure how I'm putting her down, but whatever. Men and women both work in households for many years now. Men still have the nerve to leave the housework to women after they both come home from work, though. This is why divorce rates increased. Women are no longer stuck in bad relationships because we have economic freedom. Rest just sounds like you're projecting, to be honest. Okay, so when women commonly stayed at home and then did the housework, was that just a fair exchange? You know what I mean? Like, she's complaining that when men and women come home and then the man doesn't do the housework. Well, you could have solved that by just staying home and doing the housework, but that seemed to not work. And then I replied with, but you don't pay for the bills of another human being. You don't understand the stress of making sure someone else has their health costs, food costs, shelter costs paid for. Also, if you're an engineer, pay for someone to clean a problem solved. And quoting her, men still have the nerve to leave the housework to women after they both come home from work, though. And I said, then don't do it. Problem solved. Like, this is, what is, if you're both coming home and he's not doing the housework, then you don't do the housework. Or you go halvesies on paying someone else to do it. What's the problem here? And take responsibility for your choices. Also, you don't have a relationship with men. You have a relationship with a man. Like, this is the frustrating thing about these women. They don't see relationships in terms of having a relationship with another individual. They seem to see relationships in terms of having a relationship with a stereotype about men, and usually a very negative one, just like we were talking about in this entire segue. She says, this is why divorce rates increase. Women are no longer stuck in bad relationships because we have economic freedom. So women, this is me responding, so women were only in relationships for a paycheck? Because that's the other thing. Now that women have their own jobs and we have no divorce, like we have almost no marriages, what did that say about what women were in marriage for in the first place? Like, they were in it to improve themselves materially. They weren't in it for a companion. They just wanted to improve themselves materially.
Yeah.
Like, well, that's a problem. Now that you have all of these jobs, you have to ask yourself, And apparently this is destroying people's family formation in the West, which will then destroy the entire Western system, which is giving you your job. Like, you have to ask yourself, well, what were women really about then? They're about money. And I said, honestly, I'm not here to convince you to be in a relationship with a man. Judging from your unpleasant stereotypes about men, you should probably avoid them and find yourself another flavor in the gender spectrum. And here's where I'm curious, and I really need your guys' input, because I have no idea what happened next. This is where I'm like scratching my head. This is her response. You're just mindlessly dribbling at this point. Who said I'm stuck? My whole point was I'm getting out. I'm single and happy. You sound like you love making shit up and arguing about that, or you're just drunk high. Either way, not going to waste my time here any longer. So I'm like looking at this and I'm scratching my head. Where did I say that she was stuck? And how is she getting out if she's not stuck? What is she stuck in? Like, can you guys give me any insight? Since you've learned about the female system? None?
Learning about the female system has just made me say, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore.
You're not doing this anymore?
No, no.
So it doesn't give you any insight into what the hell this woman means when she says that I accused her of being stuck. But also that she's not stuck, but she's getting out of the thing that she's not stuck in.
But she is stuck. She just wants to blame you for it. She still isn't taking responsibility.
Yeah, she's not got to do. For
Yeah,
any situation that she's in.
But it seems like she's arguing with someone. Like, all I'm saying is, if you don't like men, don't get in a relationship with men. And then she's like, I'm not stuck. I'm like, well, I didn't. Well, all right. I was just hoping that understanding the female system might actually help you understand women. But apparently No, it's just made it far more enigmatic and not worth understanding. Good Lord.
Yeah.
Okay, well, yes. Now we're just basically putting gigantic roadblocks in the way of people actually forming relationships, because that's going to work out for us.
Because going through so much of this, even this book, when it says, that the female system is not actually a thing that can be measured, it is just the process. And like, she literally, towards the end of this, says that the process is God. So the female system is God, and this is why we need to use it so that we can transcend. And at that point in time, it's just like, okay, so a female method of doing things is ever shifting, ever changing. It has no actual measurable, tangible, understandable qualities, and that is
except they're always right.
Yeah, except for the system is always right. I mean, she even says, like, at other points in this book, that women can use white male system thinking and white male system means of doing things as part of the female system, like, if it benefits that woman at that moment in time, and that's fine. And so at that point, it's just like, it doesn't matter what you're saying, because basically all you're saying, it's the same thing when she said, like, oh, I went through everything in my life when people were calling me obnoxious. No, 90% of the time it was just that everyone else was wrong.
Yeah.
It's just woo. It's just, I'm always right no matter what. Everyone else is always wrong no matter what.
There's no external standard to hold me to. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's really funny about this exchange is what I'm getting a sense of, and we watched a video a while back. It was Tom Woods, the libertarian. You remember that, Brian? And he had a guest. He had a guest on who said that the reason why women don't want to get in relationships with men and have children is because it's safer to have a paycheck. So it's a cowardly position.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that the reason why this woman insists on seeing the most negative stereotype about men is because she's a coward and does not want to take the risk of actually understanding men. And I think that's also why this porn star kept leaving, is because probably what really happened is you get to a point in a relationship where you have to be vulnerable, or you have to recognize someone else's vulnerabilities, or the external, like there's something beyond you, the relationship. And she just was like, yeah, I'm bailing. And she pretended to think that, oh, it was his problem. Yeah, I think women really have a commitment issue, and it's because they're cowards. They face the world with cowardice, and they hide their cowardice behind this kind of idea of female systems being superior, that there's nothing really out there that they need to care about that's greater than them, and that men aren't worth it. Men don't automatically, if you're in a relationship with a man, he's going to foist the housework off on you for some reason. So why even bother? Like, just be happy with having a paycheck, because it's reliable and safe. And it's sort of sad, actually. Anyway.
It's quite sad.
Okay, this was a little bit more off topic, but I just wanted to go over that because I think it does relate to this idea of the female system. Because it relates to this idea like there's no value in a relationship with a man. And that's basically what she's arguing, is there's no value in men. All right.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I guess we'll wrap it up here, at least for now. Put a
3 hours is
thing.
pretty good, I think.
That's a lot. So we'll pause here. You know, put a bookmark or whatever, and then come back to it next Wednesday if we can. So
I don't think I can fit any more post-it notes in this book. I'm sorry.
And that's just one book.
Yeah, this is one out of the stack of what, 6?
Yeah. Oh my God. So are you making like this project? Is this like a series of videos or?
I'm hoping that I might be able to condense it down to one. We'll I don't know. I'll see how it goes.
Okay.
I'm currently basically at the point of just rewriting every single one of these books in shorter bullet point sort of forms, kind of like I'm going through for this stream. And I'm hoping to basically get a version of that for each one of these books, pull out sort of all the core points of them and draw a timeline of events and just say like, hey, look, this is the objective spiritual underpinnings of the feminist movement. Like, you can't get away from this.
Yep.
And anyone who tries that's not real, that's not my... Okay, neophyte.
Yeah,
You've
exactly.
never read your holy texts. Read them. Come back when you actually understand your religion.
The sacred texts. How could you ignore them?
Yeah.
So
yeah, all the underpinning for why having a relationship with
they were not.
Yeah.
all the underpinning for why having a relationship with a man is a net negative. Like this is where this comes from, guys.
Yep.
Like we're talking about how men are completely they have to push against a headwind of this constant drumbeat that a relationship with a man is a burden and worthless, despite the fact that married women are significantly happier than single women. You know, being in a relationship with a man is a total burden and you don't want it. Well, this is like ground zero for where a lot of this stuff came from. Rolling downhill, just like it was rolling downhill to the American Psychological Association. So you have to look at this and see how deep
this is the purpose of it. It is just the history of it, because people do just seem to... I also think that it's, I suppose maybe a side tangent, which I don't want to go on to too much, is that you've noticed, I'm sure, this sort of new wave of pseudo red pill content creators who just seem to come out of nowhere and yet have these weirdly large audiences for no discernible reason. Like these
Fresh and Fit or something.
Yeah, those sorts of people. And okay. I look at the things that they're saying and I'm just like, you're not saying anything new, and frankly, you people are the worst straw men of the red pill community from like 10 years ago. Like you're not actually helping here. You're making everything worse. And part of the reason that you're making everything worse is, first of all, you're making shit arguments. Frankly, and as I said, you literally have become the worst straw men of this movement from like 10 years ago. But also, they don't know any of this stuff.
No.
So they're not going to point out why any of this stuff has happened. They have no understanding of it at all.
Yep.
Frankly, a lot of them just seem to be coming in and trying to turn it into some sort of grift.
Right, and they're the ones that are being catapulted to the stratosphere, right? So, yeah, I'm with that.
I think the phrase is controlled opposition,
Yeah.
but I have yet to prove that conclusively.
Yeah, I have a feeling about that. But okay, so we'll come back to this next week. I think we'll wrap it up here. Allison, do you have anything else?
Okay,
you wanted to
sure,
add,
yeah.
say?
Okay, so I'm still, again, canvassing for the editing of The Captive Eye. Game of Thrones meets Alice in Wonderland. You can go to feedthebadger.com/IEYE to help out with that. And also, if you have any messages after the show that you want to send us, you want to give us a tip because you really like this content, you find it erudite. That's how you pronounce that. You can go to feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Really appreciated that we aren't like just screaming into the abyss. Always makes us feel like we're doing something that matters, is important to someone. So feedthebadger.com/justthetip. If you send us a message after this show is over, we again will endeavor to read it at the next relevant show. In this case, we'll read it at the next show on this topic.
Yep.
Unless,
yeah, that's fine. And also, I wanted to ask Teal Deer, you're not on YouTube anymore, I don't think, because I was subscribed to you and you've been gone from there for a while. Are you still on any places like BitChute or Rumble?
I'm on BitChute. I'm on BitChute. I'm on Rumble. I'm on Minds. I was on Odyssey until that channel killed itself. I have to remove the videos over to a new channel there, which I will do. The reason my Odyssey account doesn't exist anymore is a weird situation. They had an option where it was disconnect your YouTube channel from the Odyssey channel.
Yeah.
And I said, yes, remove the YouTube account from the Odyssey channel. And apparently, even though that was a sub option under the connect YouTube channel to Odyssey account, apparently that was the remove your Odyssey account.
Okay.
Which left me really confused. It was like, okay, so your option tree is connect YouTube account to your Odyssey account, sub menu, remove account.
Weird.
Right.
Yeah.
But that button terminates the Odyssey account. Okay, sure. Your UI is badly designed, but
yeah, that sounds awful.
It's okay though, because all the videos are still on the site. I still have access to them. I basically just have to do a bunch of checkboxes to move them over to the new channel, which I'm going to do once I've finished uploading the backlog of stuff to Rumble, which I am doing. I'm just going to say, people, just don't use YouTube. YouTube is a terrible, terrible platform. Everything here is controlled. People are just shadow banned into oblivion if they have anything worth saying.
Yep.
Anything that gets popular for a reason, and it's because YouTube wants you to see it, which is possibly why the worst examples of red pill philosophy is the stuff that's rising now.
Yep.
Be aware of that. Go to alt tech and actually go to alt tech and look for people.
I just followed Teal Deer on Rumble, so go to Rumble, just search TL ;DR and give him a follow there and check out the videos. So
while I 100% agree with that philosophy, we're still on YouTube because at the very least, someone, there has to be some other thing out there. We're also on Rumble too. So
and Twitter, which is looking like it could be a good place to upload content, and we're on Facebook because some old people watch us there. So
Twitch as well,
and
then,
Twitch,
also Odyssey too. I'm pretty sure we're also on on Odyssey.
I think we've reached the limit of the number of places we can stream to, but because I guess there's Cozy and there's some other DLive, so yeah.
And also for some reason YouTube delivers up my shorts content on the main channel to a lot of women for some reason. So I'm enjoying trolling the fuck out of the basic bitch normie women with my hot takes. So there you go.
Do it.
There is some joy to be had left on YouTube, and I'm having it.
Agreed.
Okay.
Oh, speaking of joy on YouTube, I do run the I Can't Even News channel where I relentlessly mock the news.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's basically just the most far left propaganda you can imagine, and YouTube doesn't seem to notice what I'm doing, which I find funny.
Okay, so what's the channel?
It's I Can't Even News.
I can't even news. Okay, so guys, go there too. All right, back to you, Brian, because I'm done.
All right, so if you guys like this video, please smash like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment. This is actually a really worthwhile conversation to have, so please leave us a comment, and please share this video because sharing is caring. Be sure to follow us on all of all alt tech sites. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of the Rantzerker, and we will talk to you all in the next video.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.